They've got an audio reader for this article. Is it real or is it AI? All we wanted to do was play video games. Streamers such as Zach Asmongold Hoyt have more influence than ever. What are they really saying? By Spencer Kornhaber. Subscribe to listen? Wait. Am I an Atlantic subscriber? Hold on. I think you're a Warhawk neocon. If you disagree, can you tell me which war in the last 20 years you disagreed with? A war... well, I can't bring up Iraq, I guess, huh? I mean, I can kind of say the residuals of Iraq and Afghanistan, the lack of clear mission understanding, I think was bad. I don't know if I necessarily disagreed with the wars. We just didn't have goals, so it's hard to even know what I would disagree with or what anybody could agree or disagree with since they seemed so aimless. I don't think that any of the intervention that we helped the Saudis with in Yemen was any good. I don't think we had a clear understanding of what was going on there at all. I hear a lot of bad stuff about intervention in Libya, but I don't know if the issue there was so much the intervention or just that we didn't have a clear understanding of what would come afterwards. I don't know anything about U.S. intervention in places, I think, was it Sudan? So I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I'm not subscribed. God damn it. Subscribe. How much does this cost? $79.99 a year. Fuck it. Rape me, fam. Yes, take me. Take me. Take me. Take me. Take me. Hold on. Looking up like that will hurt your neck? I do neck exercises every day with your mom. Wait, this will work? Wait, how'd you make this work? What'd you do?
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats.
Yes, no volume
Your
button.
cat
Yes.
will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
All We Wanted to Do Was Play Video Games by Spencer Kornhaber, published on the 25th of April, 2025. This audio article was produced by 11 Labs and NOAA, News Over Audio, using an AI voice.
No! How, you subscribe, you don't even get the real voice? What? I got alopecia around the same time as you, but mine is fully grown back. I think using a derma roll is what helped me. I don't think when it comes to autoimmune stuff, everybody presents differently and progresses differently or goes away differently. I don't know if any of that shit actually helps at the end of the day. Yeah, some people get really, really unlucky. There's a subreddit where people have like lost splotches of hair all of their body, or some people get the universalis where they literally lose all their hair. And then other people seem to have like a thing and then no more spreads, or it comes back and it's whatever. So I don't know. Rip. Okay, how does the AI voice sound?
You can listen to more of the world's best journalism on the NOAA app or at newsoveraudio.com.
Okay.
When Representative Al Green of Texas started shouting and waving his cane around during Donald Trump's address to Congress last month, pundits described the Democrat as causing a disruption, pulling a stunt, or peacefully protesting. In the wilds of online alternative media, another term was being used: malding. Mauled is a blend of mad and bald. It's video gamer slang for getting
malding. Will you be doing a stream debate prep for May 6th? I don't know.
So angry after suffering a loss that you pull your hair out. I learned the word by watching Twitch, the streaming platform that is famous for turning video games into a spectator sport.
Ooh.
And that has, of late, become an important forum for political commentary. One of the most popular Twitch streamers right now is a 35-year-old World of Warcraft expert who goes by the name Asmongold and primarily streams under the handle Zacrower.
Asmongold?
On the day after Trump's congressional address, Asmongold kicked off his stream by telling his viewers he was excited to finish playing the new game Monster Hunter Wilds and to sort through the fallout from Trump's speech. He pulled up a TV news interview in which Green explained that he'd interrupted the president to object to potential Medicaid cuts. Asmongold offered his view. Interrupting Trump was tantamount to malding out, which makes people think you're a fucking retard. Asmongold, whose real name is Zach Hoyt, is a prominent member of a class of influencers that has been helping remake the American electorate. With an average of more than 2.2 million people.
2.2 million people. Have you seen that apparently a new memo from the OJ has instructed law enforcement officers to be able to enter a person's residence without a warrant? Nope.
tuning in, which makes people think you're a fucking retard. Asmongold, whose real name is Zach Hoyt, is a prominent member of a class of influencers that has been helping remake the American electorate. With an average of more than 2.2 million people tuning into Twitch at any given moment, and clips of the top streamers regularly going mega viral on the wider internet, the platform is, as the journalist Nathan Grayson points out in the new book, Stream Big, comparable in reach to mainstream television networks like CNN and Fox during primetime slots and major events, and that's without counting other streaming venues, such as Kick and YouTube. During last year's campaign, the Trump camp courted the streamer Aiden Ross in order to reach a young, largely male constituency that ended up helping decide the election.
Wow.
Trump's second administration has made it even clearer how the culture of gaming, a pastime enjoyed weekly by 61% of adults, age 36 on average, is bleeding into American politics. The avowed Diablo 4 player Elon Musk explains Doge's activities with gaming terms such as speed running, beating a game way more quickly than its creators intended, or slashing government at a far faster rate than previously seemed possible. Musk recently beefed with Hassan Piker, the popular leftist Twitch streamer who has been enlisted by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to help rally opposition to Trump. He has also publicly feuded with Asmongold, after Asmongold criticized Musk for exaggerating his own gaming accomplishments, which is kind of like the 2020's equivalent of a politician fudging their golf handicap or Warzone experience. I've been dipping in and out of Asmongold's channel for the past month to understand what it means for politics to be processed through the lens of video games. After all, how a society amuses itself tends to affect how it governs itself. The rise of TV, the media theorist Neil Postman famously argued, remade politics into visual entertainment, ruled by optics. Professional sports, it's often said, primes people to view elections as a contest between rivals. The internet has inflated the importance of identity and authenticity, inviting campaigners to act like just another face in the social media scroll. Gaming seems to be intensifying the effects of those three media and adding in something else: cynicism.
Ooh.
Asmongold's hair is scraggly and brown. His build is stringy. His eyebrows are given to vigorous wiggling.
Hater
He likes to
alert,
brag
Jesus.
about not showering for months. Most of his streams start with him taking questions from his viewers, who provide a continuous river of comments in his Twitch chat room. The topics might include what he ate last night, possibly Taco Cabana, what he thinks of puzzle games, not a fan, the reason why is I don't want to think, and whether he's ever going to stream from the White House. We'll see what happens. He then starts browsing the internet, sharing his screen with viewers while clicking among memes and news clips shared on Reddit and X.
That's us!
He'll watch speeches and news segments in full, pausing every so often to add an uh-oh or a let's go, or a longer bit of analysis.
Let's go.
Before I started tuning into Twitch, keeping it on in the background while sending emails or cleaning the house, I wondered whether its practitioners were just updated versions of old media archetypes, such as the talk radio host, football commentator, and news anchor. But Asmongold is less energetic and polished than those kinds of professionals. The feeling one gets is not of watching him, but of watching with him.
Aww.
I sometimes felt a pang of nostalgia for middle school hangouts with friends. A specific form of communication arises from a group of guys staring at the same screen. You murmur nonsense back and forth in a knowingly Neanderthal manner. It's bracketed in irony, based less in thinking than reacting.
Jesus.
He's playing the role of a buddy on the couch. That said, he's a buddy with a lot of opinions. Last year, he was temporarily banned from Twitch for saying that Palestinians were part of an inferior culture, whose destruction he doesn't mourn. He apologized. Earlier this month, he attracted controversy for saying that transgender kids exist only because of adults' mental illness. He doubled down on that one. But his style is far from the stridency of provocateurs such as Candace Owens and Newsmax's Trump apologists. Instead, he's detached or wryly amused. He comes off like a burned-out tutor hired to translate current events into gamer-speak for distracted teens. For example, he said Trump's tariffs were fixing the Loot Council, equating global capital to gold or treasures earned in a World of Warcraft raid. Indeed, Asmongold's foray into political commentary often seems to have been undertaken half-heartedly. The gaming world's rightward drift can be traced back to the Gamergate controversy of a decade ago, when a vocal slice of gamers organized an angry backlash to game designers and journalists who had been trying to make the art form more diverse and inclusive. "All we wanted to do was play video games," Asmongold said in a recent stream, "and then they had to put girls in video games. And so now we have to elect Donald Trump to stop that." He was speaking in a sarcastic deadpan, but he was suggesting a truth about the particular brand of conservatism that has taken hold of numerous men lately. In many cases, it's driven not by a committed belief system, but by a tribal vendetta against, to use one of his favorite terms, the retards of the identity-focused left.
And this guy says
that
the R
particular slur
a lot.
actually says a lot about Asmongold's outlook. He presents himself as standing for opinions that are so widely shared and so obvious that disagreeing with him means you're intellectually disabled. And the logic of his usage would suggest he thinks pitiful.
True.
He'll often reiterate that he's no partisan hack. Unlike many elected Republicans, he's in favor of universal basic income and a constitutional right to an abortion.
Wow.
"I place pretty much no values in principles or morality," he said in one stream. "I think that these are top-down ideas that are given to you by the elites." The professed disregard for ideology is, of course, hardly rare these days. Joe Rogan's entire brand is free thinking. Even Trump likes to justify his decisions as being common sense. This sort of logic is perhaps why the term NPC, or non-player character, has become trendy on the right. In video games, an NPC is a computer-controlled ally or opponent, such as a blacksmith who sells the player gear and a goblin whom the player must slay. Their pool of dialogue is limited and their characterization thin. They have no real identity beyond how the player sees them. In recent years, Musk and many others have taken to calling their liberal opponents NPCs. Ironically enough, the diss suggests its own ideology. Politics isn't a dispute among philosophical visions for a better world, or even a contest among constituencies for resources. It's a
just
quest for
meme
certain humans
shitposting.
who matter to defeat people-shaped obstacles that don't. In this schema, Trump is simply the man who's rescuing the country from the rule of the brainless. Asmongold's commentary about the president usually focuses not on whether any given decision by Trump is wise in its own right, but rather on
Whether
how
it's
the
based.
average or normal person is going to react.
Oh.
Asmongold has, for example, little particular insight about the economy. "I don't really care about whether the tariffs are good or bad. I don't give a fuck," he said in one stream.
So brave.
But he seems to have schadenfreude about the distress the tariffs have caused. Over and over, he's hammered at the idea that normal people don't care about the stock market, in the same way that the elites who are criticizing Trump's policies do. Asmongold doesn't agree with everything Trump does, but he clearly thinks that the president is scaring the right people. Sometimes I'd start to wonder what I was doing spending time listening to Asmongold at all. Then I'd notice that 60,000 people were watching live, or I'd go to his YouTube page and see that the viewership for any given clip from his streams ranges from the hundreds of thousands to the millions. He may sound like just some guy on the couch, but now he, and many other guys on the couch, have captured a slice of the voting public and have ties to political figures of influence.
Damn.
Not all gaming streamers are alike. Piker, who's been hyped as the potential Joe Rogan of the left in news coverage since the election,
Yeah.
delivers heady Marxist theory and wonkish research on geopolitics.
Just to be clear, nobody in the entire world that knows what a wonk is or that has watched any Hassan Piker streams would ever describe him as a wonk in any sense of the word. He is an ideologue through and through. So that's a very funny glaze, but Jesus.
In a tone of frat boy exuberance. But Asmongold is the more popular figure, and he's one member of a larger, right-leaning ecosystem.
Remember, we did it, guys. We're the ones that made him popular. Good job. What is a wonk? A wonk is like a guy who likes to get into the minutia of some particular thing. Usually you would hear a policy wonk is going to be a guy who's like, I think that the marginal tax rate should be 37.9% because it'll raise like that kind of money, right? That's like a policy wonk. Wonks are guys that like work at think tanks or do like a lot of policy analysis, basically.
Often while watching Asmongold, I thought about the video game concept of the meta. It refers to shared knowledge among dedicated players about the best practices for succeeding in a game.
Wonkish isn't a glaze, though? Is wonkish a glaze or not? I feel like it can be. Like, people I don't think I've actually ever heard wonk used as an insult. It sounds like an insulting word, like just the letters. What a wonk. But I feel like I've heard people self-describe as policy wonks, a policy wonk that works for whatever. I feel like that's what I generally see.
The meta means approaching video games with a Moneyball mentality. It means knowing, say, the optimal sword to use against a particular boss. Gamers play games for all sorts of reasons, to roleplay, to challenge themselves, to kill time with friends. But digging into the meta means looking beneath a fantastical veneer, story, graphics, so on, to exploit the rules. To see the world in this way means discounting the ideas that ostensibly govern our society, ethics, beliefs, norms, and instead processing life as a struggle for dominance. The strangest thing about this view of politics is that it's seductive enough.
Paul Ryan was kind of described as wonkish in a derogatory way, compared to calling a politician nerdy. I guess it can. Paul Ryan, though? Maybe.
Perhaps even addictive enough to pull...
Damn. This is why I don't like talking about who's going to be president in 2020. I feel like there was talk of Paul Ryan being the next president. That guy had a really bright political future, didn't he? I thought he was so popular. And then, what, he just didn't want to carry the Trump banner? And he just, like, completely and totally disappeared from politics forever? What does he do? I don't even know what he does now. He quit. Yeah, I think he quit the first 2 years after in the Trump admin. That's crazy. We don't even know his name. Paul Ryan. Who's that guy? Jeez.
Pull people away from the greatest distraction on Earth, video games. On the first day I tuned into Asmongold, I was amazed to find that it took him a full 5 hours of chit-chatting before he finally fired up Monster Hunter Wilds, a game about, well, hunting monsters. In combat, he frantically mashed buttons, hooting "Big Dick" whenever he was doing well. During cutscenes, videos advancing the game's narrative, he talked over the dialogue, issuing summaries like, "So I have to kill the big thing, right?" I recognize his hypnotized, single-minded mentality from my own gaming experiences. After a certain amount of playtime, what's on screen stops looking like a coherent world and starts looking like inputs and outputs, challenges and rewards. And when you look up, reality feels like the screen. That was All We Wanted to Do Was Play Video Games by Spencer Kornhaber.
Wow.
This audio article was produced by 11 Labs and NOAA, News Over Audio, using an AI voice. You can listen to more of the world's best journalism on the NOAA app or at newsoveraudio.com.
I'll give it to him.
To preserve democracy, one has to believe in it. To believe in democracy, one has to understand it. Where it came from.
No one cares. What do Asmongold's people think about this? After reading it, one of the things that caught my eye was this. I knew they were going to get mad at this. That's not what Gamergate was about! The gaming world's rightward drift can be traced back to the Gamergate controversy of a decade ago, when a vocal slice of gamers organized an angry backlash to game designers and journalists who had been trying to make the art form more diverse and inclusive. All we wanted to do was play video games, Asmongold said in a recent stream. The author's opinions can still be picked out a bit in the article, but this might be the first time in a major news article that they didn't refer to Gamergate as a harassment campaign, though he still kind of alludes to it. Baby steps, I suppose. Oh, well, they actually thought it was a good thing. Crazy, okay. Can you show Vlad Vexler some love? Now his health has been in a very bad shape. Sure, we love him. I guess. I don't have strong opinions on him. Seems like a cool dude. Seems like Asmon's view is he is a centrist and will sympathize with whatever side he thinks is being less stupid overall. Wow. That's kind of how Joe Rogan is as well. We're seeing the Frogan's response to Ethan's video. Yep. What? Kanye West was banned from Twitch just 7 minutes into his first stream. No. Not yay.
Why do these people do this? Why? You hate Trump. I do too. Please wake up.
Oh my God, he's so the most disgusting thing that Hassan does is when he LARPs as a liberal. It is so it's more gross too, because no offense, but like for the Pod Save America guys, like people just aren't willing to do their homework on like who he actually is, and then they end up platforming him, and it's the grossest fucking thing in the world when you allow yourself to be fooled by the himbo cringe shit for a guy who's an actual like ideological fucking terrorist. It's so fucking gross. He just wants to be involved in like the upcoming political season, because obviously everybody sees there's going to be kind of like, or we've been in this like big reset era, and people want to like hop on board with where everything's going next. But
Just wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Trump is a extension. Trump is a logical continuation of the system that you are defending.
Of liberalism,
Please,
bro.
wake up. I genuinely don't understand how these guys like liberals who see me as their like arch enemy, their arch nemesis, are so fucking stupid. I'm so sorry for linking them. No, it's all good. It's funny. It's a funny little sidestep that we took here. Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, ay, ay.
They hate me, but then they fucking take and assume my positions that they initially hated years later, you know?
Yeah? Is that how
years
that works?
down the line.
Mm-hmm.
They will always inevitably arrive at the same positions.
That is not supposed to go there. Fuck.
Thanks for retweeting my tweet, Hassan. I won't you. Wait, are you the one who fucking posted the Sam Hyde thing? Do you see Sean O'Brien is going after AOC and Burn?
Hassan doesn't make an enemy out of liberals, by the way.
I learned how much he hates liberals.
Dude, I hate liberals, dude. I hate them. I hate them so viciously.
Did he secretly despise me this whole time?
I'm sorry, dude. I hate liberals so much.
Did this man sit next to me for 2 years and pretend to be my friend?
Dude, liberals are a burden on this planet, dude. Liberals are the most, like, scummy, vile fucking idiots. Liberals are incredibly stupid. I hate these petulant liberals, dumb fucking liberals.
What else is someone this sociopathic capable of?
I will say, I feel like this... I don't know if I agree with Ethan's perspective here, because I feel like... I'm trying to remember the part of the content cop that responds to Hassan being so cagey and stealthy about his feelings. Fuck. In the content cop, what does Ian say about how much Hassan openly lies about how he masks himself? Wait, why don't I remember this? It was a huge part of the content nuke that Ethan did. Ian, the iDubbbz guy, when he did the content cop on Ethan, how does Ian explain all of these things from Hassan? Wait, why don't I remember him talking about this? Did he leave that entire fucking part out of his video? That's crazy. Huh. This tweet is going viral. What tweet? Hassan's going viral on TikTok. 1 million likes and counting. What, Palestine? This is a safe space to say that I have a strong dislike for the specific type of man. Oh. Oof. 1 million likes. Damn. How old is this picture of Hassan? George Santos sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud and identity theft. He told me they were going for 2 when we spoke. Rip. Identity theft. Or wait, did Legal Eagle do a video on the actual legal stuff?
We got him! Yes, to the surprise of everyone.
Wait. I'll get the Red Bull.
One, Congressman Santos has been criminally indicted. Assistant District Attorney Scowl Owl has more.
George Anthony Volder Santos. Convicted every day in the court of public opinion for fashion crimes by wearing sweaters with his suits every single day. And now alleged to have committed 13 federal crimes in the Eastern District of New York. Who is this international man of mystery? This alleged felon with questionable fashion sense? And what's he accused of? Let's dive in. George Santos is an American citizen. That much we can say for certain. He may have been born in Brazil or the United States, but he's repeatedly...
Hello, hello?
Hello? Oh, cool.
Hi, what's up?
Hey, are you in the middle of anything?
No, what's up?
Hey, you read through the charging document or the affidavit in support for Dagan?
Yeah, what about it?
Okay. I'm going to try and give your take on this to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting before I soy out.
Okay.
You would say that Dagan did intentionally obstruct the arrest of the undocumented migrant. I can't remember his name in it. And then you would say that that warrants her being arrested, and that this is a bad thing for us to stand up and, or for people to like defend or point out as some kind of overstep of executive power, right?
Yeah, I would say so. From assuming everything in the charging document is true, and assuming there's not some crazy law that I'm not aware of or whatever, then it seems like a decent arrest, and she seems really out of line. But
okay, good, because that's all totally fair. I'm about to tell you about the crazy law that you don't know about. So in the United States, we have something called judicial immunity, and it's one of like the few forms of absolute immunity that exists in the legal system. And if a judge is acting as a judge...
Oh, no, hold on. Judicial immunity, I believe.
One second.
Okay, yeah.
Before you say anything, I'm applying the standard of the electors were not fraudulent because they never lied to the government. They just wrote down things on a piece of paper that they believed to be true. That's the level of charity I'm about to give you on this, because I am done doing anything other than the letter of the law here. So you go ahead and make your argument, but I'm going to come back at you and just let you know that judges let people leave out of doors in their courtrooms all the time. And if she chooses a different door than normal, well, you know what? That's still within the judge's purview. She was wearing a black robe. Cases were in front of her. She was acting as a judge. She should not have been arrested. So you go ahead and make your argument.
Sure. So my understanding is when you talk about judicial immunity, you're talking about immunity. You're talking about absolute civil immunity for a judge insofar as they're performing their job as a judge. That like if a judge were to make an incorrect ruling on something that gets appealed, for instance, but that ruling caused somebody to owe somebody a whole bunch of money, you can't sue the judge. Like the judge can never be sued for their job. But let's say that a judge says, the case is over, you've been convicted, we're at sentencing, I sentence you to execution, and then the judge stands up and pulls out a gun and shoots somebody in the face. The judge doesn't get to say, oh, well, I'm acting as my role as a judge, I have immunity here. So the judge was clearly obstructing the federal agents, and she was helping to basically shoo a guy outside of a courthouse so that ICE wouldn't find him, and she had no good reason to do this. And also, when we finish this, I have a clever or a cute little thought experiment that I think the judge could have done that I actually maybe would have supported, but I don't believe that this was it. I don't think this is the judge acting in their official capacity. It seemed to be pretty clearly just trying to obstruct immigration officers.
Sure, I think that's fair. But I would say that in the past, so just like 1991, there was a case where the Supreme Court, there was a judge that issued a bench warrant for a man's arrest, told the cops to rough up the guy. Cops beat the shit out of this guy, brought him in, And the Supreme Court said, yeah, what that judge did was probably unprofessional and possibly criminal, but he's got absolute immunity from any lawsuits coming from this. So, fair.
Wait, careful.
What?
Wait, just real quick. When you said absolute immunity from any lawsuits coming from this, because that could mean different things. Are you saying that that judge was unimpeachable? Not like to be, sorry, that's a bad word in this case. That judge couldn't be charged with a crime? Or are you saying that the behavior of the judge, while unprofessional, probably doesn't rise to the level of criminal conduct, and they still can't be held civilly liable for ordering the cops to do that, such that the person couldn't sue the judge for that order? The minutiae here, I think, is really important. Because let's say the judge told the cops, hey, go arrest this guy, and while you're doing it, why don't you rape his children? Like, are you saying the judge wouldn't be held criminally liable for that? Because I feel like, yeah, these distinctions matter a lot here.
Well, actually, I'll give you this. I think you're right in the distinctions. And as far as I understand, judicial immunity has not been tested in the sense of criminal actions of this nature.
Yeah,
right.
Because generally when we talk about immunity for people, it's never in a criminal sense like the president got. And there's also that one other key distinction for the president in that usually when we're talking about immunity, it's not this type of immunity where you're not even allowed to consider the motivations of the person. Like that went above and beyond for the president as well. But okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, then now, actually, I'm actually going to be stronger in my argument.
Okay.
We have 3 co-equal branches.
Yep.
And I think that they could never be co-equal unless the judges were afforded the same level of criminal immunity that a president was afforded whenever they're acting within their capacity as judges. As this has not currently been expressly decided with regards to the criminal immunity of a judge doing something like this, I think the Supreme Court should 100% give this person, would say, no, the judicial immunity extends to official, or whatever the other 2 things are. Was it official, on the edge of official, and then personal actions? What are the 3 things for presidential immunity?
One was core power, so exclusive or preclusive, and the other was official acts and then non-official acts, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is purely, core powers, letting people out of a courtroom. I have to ask if I'm dismissed at the end of every single case before I can leave the room. It's core power of a judge to let people out of the courtroom.
Okay.
So I'm going for that.
Okay.
But what I'll say is, memes aside, I think that there's also, I would say that conceding the ground of she did, even if all the facts are true in this, I would say conceding the grounds to the point that she should be arrested, I think is premature. I think that there are judicial disciplinary committees that really should be handling this rather than criminal actions, especially if she is acting in an official capacity. If she's acting in an official capacity as a judge, I would say that this is something that's much more in their purview, especially considering the man was also immediately arrested. Also, she didn't sneak him out of the courthouse. She let him she just let him through a door that put him into a different public area in the courthouse where he was then pursued and arrested outside of the courthouse. So
yeah, but the goal was to get him around the goal was to obviously get him around the ICE agents. That was.
I understand what you're saying there, but there are minutiae arguments within that I would make on her behalf if I were her attorney or whatever. But what I would say is that I think that to me, I would say this would be something for judicial disciplinary committees to review, and then once that is done, potentially criminal charges, because that's the other side, is that if it is within, if the judicial committee says we think this was within her judicial purview and she should enjoy judicial immunity, whether it's criminal or civil, we are going to disbar her, right? In the same way that the way that people seem to treat impeachment of, you can't charge the president with a crime until he's impeached, right? I think that kind of thing, since that's the world we live in, that's how this should be treated, where we should see whether or not she's disbarred or whether or not the judiciary even thinks this was an official act. They really should be the ones to determine that. And I think that this kind of charging document is premature, especially because I don't think there's, it's like a crime that she's committing that's like an ongoing harm. I don't think that the resulting harm that came from her actions are such that we need to arrest her right away. If she was suspended from the bench until this is determined, I think that's a totally appropriate thing. If she was disbarred for this, I think that could also be a totally appropriate thing. And then from there, make this determination. But I think that just reading the affidavit, even assuming everything there is true, is premature to say, yeah, she should be arrested.
That's
because
possible.
also-
You could argue that an arrest was too far, and it should have been a recommendation for, for some type of disciplinary. That could be it. Here's the thing that I think I actually would have supported, because it would have followed the letter of the law, and I think it would have been a more clever way to get around this. Is I wish, actually, I don't know, maybe she could have done this. Is my understanding is they showed up with an administrative warrant. If she would have taken the guy into custody, I don't know if the feds could have arrested him at that point, and that would have been interesting.
Well, yeah. So I think that would have probably only been like a temporary measure thing, because like you're right. Well, like as long as he was in that courtroom, they literally could not arrest him. Like they wouldn't have been allowed to if he was in the courtroom.
Well, that's true, but the second he leaves, now it's considered a public area, and they could. That's what they were waiting for, right?
And so then if he's in some kind of judicial holding area at the court, I'm sure there's some rule that'll tell us exactly how that works. But you're right. And the other issue though is like, let's say she found him guilty of a crime and they sent him to like a state or county prison, they would have just turned him over to the feds. Those prisons, they would just have done that. That would have been outside of her.
Sure. Which is probably fine, right? Like it's probably okay. Much the same that I think conservatives are unhinged by basically saying they really don't want any asylum seekers at all, which is ridiculous. On our end, we should be able to say that like there are illegal immigrants that probably should be expelled from this country, right? Like if the guy hadn't asked for a stay or anything like that, and like he's illegal, then I mean like these people should be kicked out. We follow the due process and everything, but like we shouldn't be wasting money on keeping them in all that bullshit if they haven't applied or anything like that. Yeah.
Sure, but I think it's also fair to say that we shouldn't be wasting our money on having like 14 ICE agents and FBI agents going into these courthouses in the way that they're doing. Like I would say that like
I would agree with you policy wise, but I would protect the president if he chooses to dole out his executive in that way. That really is in his purview, and it is appropriately so. So if he decides he wants to enforce legal immigration that way, I mean like that's on Trump to do it. He can do that,
That's fair. I think that one thing that I thought was interesting, I don't know if you saw it, is that it looked like the court was currently undergoing a change in policy regarding federal arrests within the courthouse. I think that she's probably got not a great one, but at least something in there where she could say, I thought we weren't supposed to allow arrests to happen in the courthouse at the time because there was a conversation that was had with the Chief Justice that said differently, but she wasn't present for that conversation. So I could see there being something.
Your actions here, this is part of why, right, as a lawyer, right, why you tell if you have a client, like don't talk to the cops or don't say anything, is because the actions that you take are going to highly speak to your mens rea, your state of mind. If she truly thought that it wasn't an issue, then the fact that you're getting irate, you're arguing with people, the fact that you're trying to lure them away, the fact that you're letting this person have an atypical exit, like all of these things are going to go towards, proving your intent for what you thought was going on.
And I'm going to, real quick, I agree with what you're saying there. You're right. That's what I'm saying. It's not the best defense, but it is something that could come up. What I would say, though, is that reading this charging document, and I can't say I'm an expert at reading federal charging documents.
Sure. I do want to say real quick, I didn't see the charging document. I read the affidavit that was filled out, so I don't know what the charging document looks like.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Affidavit and report, So I haven't read a ton of them, so I can't speak with any kind of expertise. But I will say, compared to the ones that I have read, the hearsay that was contained within that affidavit was quite flagrant compared to other stuff I've seen. Usually whenever you're seeing hearsay in these documents, it's usually like, I interviewed this officer, he told me this specific thing, this is what he told me, and I used that for the probable cause, right?
Yeah, so I would agree with you if you're talking for a PC assessment, for sure. However, this isn't the charging document itself. This is just an affidavit, right? So it could be that the actual charging document, if they've charged her with a crime, I don't know if they have yet or if they just arrested her, but it could be that the actual charging document has other affidavits, or if this guy is, reporting what he heard from somebody else, that they also have that other person's statement in an affidavit as well. That's possible too, right?
Well, yeah, that's all I was gonna say is if there are other affidavits that can, collaborate this hearsay in this affidavit. I don't have any complaints, but there's some stuff in there where it's like, this person believed this, that, and the other, and it's like, why are we talking about people's belief, like their beliefs about things, or just like the amount of just like these people are just random people telling things. Like there's one point where the deputy goes, he wasn't familiar with people using the jury door for these different reasons. And it's like,
I think
It's
the reason
really
why
weird to
you
see
state
that
that,
about.
and I might just be borrowing from my own civil case at the moment, is I think it's pretty common that you would say upon belief in information because a person might not be the one who sets the policy. So like if you've worked in a courthouse for a long time and you've seen people go on, you might say like, well, upon belief in information, this person says that these people don't typically go through the store or whatever. If you were the person who set the policy or whatever, or if you were the guard, you could say like, you are not allowed to do this, but otherwise you wouldn't make that strong statement. Yeah, go ahead.
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying that, like, and that's what I mean. If there's an affidavit supporting that statement, but the person writing the affidavit isn't saying that. They're saying this person told me that it's their belief that this is how this stuff works, and that for me, in an affidavit supporting the arrest, it was like, that's because it's, and the reason I'm saying that is because it's pretty important to this case, them leaving through that jury door, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
it is,
people, if leaving through, right, and that jury door, them leaving through that still resulted in him in going to a public area outside of the courtroom.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a thing where whenever if I was like her defense attorney, I would look at that and go, okay, they're trying to set this as though it is strict policy, as though her going outside of that strict policy is weird and such that we can infer her intent, right? And
True,
I would
but
say
although
that,
in this case, this is just, remember, our standard here is just probable cause. And we still don't even know if she'll be actually arraigned, right? Maybe she won't be charged with any crimes, because I don't know if there is even a formal charges against her yet. So, for just probable cause, this is probably okay.
Yeah.
And if they were to do a full investigation, if they were to do an arraignment and they do an investigation, then obviously they would clear up any of these hearsay elements in the course of the investigation. They would interview, or they would figure out, like, well, what is the actual policy? And then they would go through that, right?
I agree with you, like, when we're moving down the line. I'm just saying, for me, whenever I'm reading this right now and I see these issues already right here, because, like, in the other one, like, one, I would say that it shows us, it signals that this is an incredibly rushed action by the government, right?
Do you think so?
There's
I feel like this, I'm happy that they at least felt the need to release an affidavit. At least it shows there's some pressure on them now that they realize they can't just start doing all this stuff willy-nilly. So at least they had a guy fill out a statement, release an affidavit, and do it. I think that
I'm
was
sorry.
fun.
I mean, in the sense of, like, yeah, like if I was thinking about like a case like this normally, I would be surprised to see this happen within a week under any other administration, is all I mean. And then whenever I'm looking at the charging document and I'm seeing kind of the way that they're supporting their actions, it feels very like we just need to put something on this piece of paper to support it, because we don't have that much right now, rather than taking the time to get these other affidavits. And maybe they have them, so I could be speaking out of my ass.
The question, I guess, right now, it is pretty exceptional to arrest a judge, I think, and you should understand, especially in the context of everything, how that looks. Like, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, is it 72 hours, or how long do you have to formally charge somebody with a crime before releasing them? It's possible there won't even be an arraignment. She'll just get released, right?
48 hours. Federal, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. She was arrested by federal officers, so imagine to a federal place. Yeah. So it would be. Yeah. She might not even be charged with a crime, right? That could be the case.
It could be the case, though. They are already bringing 2 charges under. It's fine. They've got 2 charges of obstruction they intend to bring. But I'm still, to be clear, though, I'm not backing away. I think that I still stand by. I think she should have judicial immunity, and any other argument at this point until it's determined that her actions weren't within a judicial capacity is giving too much ground. I think that it's really seeing what other people have gotten immunity for in the past, and I'm not gonna say for certain, but I'm pretty sure that they enjoy a good level of criminal immunity within that judicial immunity. But
I don't know, man. I don't think criminal immunity exists for anybody. I don't think even judges have criminal immunity. I think it's just civil immunity from being sued for judgments they make. And then, obviously you can't be criminally charged for stuff that's part of your job. So like a judge wouldn't get a conspiracy to murder if they sentence somebody to die, obviously. But I don't know if judges have criminal immunity. Right. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Yeah, that's fine. I found an opportunity to disagree with you and come be soy based. I feel like I agree with you too much on strain.
Okay, that's always good.
Okay, yeah. Well, sorry everybody for interrupting. Whatever we're doing, Hassan drama slop. Oh, you're doing the Santos thing. Oh, I'm sorry everybody. I have been interested to see what's going on with that. I'll hop on.
This is old, so I was just curious what he was formally charged with. This is a year old, but apparently his sentencing was today, and it was 7 years, so rip.
Yeah, I saw that. Is it... Oh, I see there's the Bermuda Triangle in this opening shot, so I'm expecting just some absolutely fucked up shit from Santos. But yeah, you have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, have a good
everybody
one.
else in chat. Oh, hey, everybody in chat, real quick. Thank you guys in chat. You guys actually gave me some good advice about my microphone, and I've got some stuff coming in that might make it a little bit better. I appreciate you guys. Destiny, you also did kind of help with that, so thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
He avoided clarifying his place of birth for reasons that are unexplained. Nevertheless, he went through primary and secondary school in Queens, New York. He lived in Brazil from 2008 to 2011. The circumstances of him moving back to the United States in 2011 are odd. He was accused of check fraud in Brazil, but failed to appear in court in 2000. He went through primary and secondary school in Queens, New York. He lived in Brazil from 2008 to 2011. The circumstances of him moving back to the United States in 2011 are odd. He was accused of check fraud in Brazil, but failed to appear in court in 2011, leaving the case open for over a decade. After moving back to the U.S. in 2011, he bounced around jobs before running as a Republican for New York's 3rd Congressional District in 2020. Now, he lost to the incumbent, Thomas Suozzi, but not badly. And in 2022, Suozzi announced he wouldn't run for re-election. Santos decided to run again, and this time against a non-incumbent.
George, do you have an honest moment inside of you ever when you're campaigning?
And in November of 2022, Santos won in what some people called a mild upset. The stories that Santos told on the campaign trail started unraveling in late December 2022 when the New York Times published a long investigation. What followed, though, was often stranger than fiction, a seemingly endless string of new revelations. He said he worked for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs, despite them having no records of him doing so. He claimed to be a star college volleyball player. He even allegedly stole a dog from an Amish dairy farmer. To his very minor credit, Santos has admitted to making some misleading claims about his education and financial status and apologized for it.
I made a mistake, and I think humans are flawed.
But he continues to deny the more serious allegations. Meanwhile, the Brazilian government publicized his whole open check fraud case, and Santos managed a civil compromise that closed the criminal case down there. As the story swirled, Santos showed up for his job in Congress and swore nothing would stop him from doing his job. Despite several fellow Republicans calling for his resignation from Congress, Santos vowed to run for re-election.
It's a great day to be an American, it's a great day to be a Republican, and it's a great day to go down to re-election.
On May 9th, news broke that federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York had filed a sealed indictment against Santos.
We just saw Matt Gaetz survive a massive scandal. He's elected.
Oh my
We've seen members of Congress survive scandal on scandal.
When confronted by the media, Santos actually seemed surprised by the news. But it quickly became apparent that he would show up the next day in the Eastern District to be arraigned. On May 10th, Santos was arraigned in federal court. The indictment was unsealed. It contains 13 criminal counts, including wire fraud, unlawful monetary transactions over $10,000, theft of public money, and false statements. Those 13 counts basically capture 3 separate but related criminal schemes. First, defrauding campaign contributors. Second, unlawfully obtaining unemployment benefits. And 3, lying to Congress about his finances. Let's start with the first.
Not good,
campaign
George.
This
Not
scheme
good.
is the most complex, involves the most money, and is covered by the first 8 of the 13 counts in the indictment. Here's the gist. Federal prosecutors allege that Santos lied to 2 people to get them to make what they thought were political contributions to a company Santos actually controlled, and then Santos took that money from the company for his own personal use, buying luxury designer clothes and paying off credit card bills. Again, I have to question the luxury designer clothes allegation when he's wearing a sweater under a suit jacket every single day. But I will let the federal took that money, people, to get them to make what they thought were political.
To defraud supporters conceded for the House and to obtain money from them by fraudulently inducing supporters to funds to Company 1 or the false chance the money would be used to support DeVolder Santos' candidacy and then actually spending thousands of dollars on this. I wonder how he defrauded them. What did he say?
Contributions to a company Santos actually controlled, and then Santos took that money from the company for his own personal use, buying luxury designer clothes and paying off credit card bills. Again, I have to question the luxury designer clothes allegation when he's wearing a sweater under a suit jacket every single day. But I will let the federal prosecutors deal with that particular factual incongruity. I don't think it's essential to the case. Now, this campaign donation scheme almost certainly starts with a company called Redstone Strategies, LLC. The indictment doesn't name the company that Santos used to get the campaign contributions, calling it only Company Number 1. But there's good reason to believe that Company Number 1 is, in fact, Redstone. The indictment describes Company Number 1 as a Florida LLC formed on November 1st, 2021, with its principal place of business in Merritt Island, Florida, and with 2 authorized managers, one of which was DeVolder Organization, LLC. Sure enough, Redstone Strategies was an LLC registered to an address in Merritt Island, Florida on November 1st, 2021, and listed the DeVolder Organization as one of the managing officers. And as the name would suggest, the single authorized manager of the DeVolder Organization was George Santos. It's also worth pointing out that Redstone Strategies was voluntarily dissolved on January 25th, 2023, just 3 weeks after Santos was sworn into Congress. Federal prosecutors allege that Santos caused a person identified only as person number 1 to communicate with 2 potential donors, contributor number 1 and contributor number 2. Those communications stated that Redstone Strategies was a 501c4 organization, that donors could contribute unlimited amounts of money, and that the money would be spent on advertisements in support of Santos's candidacy. Now, again, while the contributors were not named in the indictment, the New York Times has identified them as Raymond Tantillo and Andrew Intrater, 2 wealthy businessmen. Apparently, in response to Person 1's communications, both Tantillo and Intrater each made what they thought were political donations to Redstone Strategies. Each gave $25,000.
Look, I don't have a number in my head. Like, the fact that I'm having these are conversations I never in a million years thought I'd be having. But when in Rome, let's have the conversations.
So why was the assurance that Redstone was a 501c4 organization important? Well, 501c4 organizations are so-called social welfare organizations governed by special IRS rules. You can't write a donation to a 501c4 off your taxes like a 501c3 nonprofit, but they are tax exempt and they don't have to disclose their donors. Most importantly, they can engage in politics. Their major purpose can't be to elect candidates to office. So generally speaking, they can spend up to 49.9% of their budget on candidate election work, but they are frequently used to funnel money into election campaigns through so-called dark money contributions. Remember, the donors don't have to be disclosed.
Not the dark
problem
money.
for Santos, of course, is that Redstone was not registered with the IRS as a 501c4 organization. Oops. So the lie that Redstone was a 501c4 was designed to induce a transfer of money from those two wealthy businessmen that they wouldn't have otherwise done. That is what the law calls a scheme to defraud. And since it was done over interstate wires, bingo, wire fraud. Actually, 5 separate wire fraud counts for 5 separate emails and text messages to those businessmen. Those are the first 5 charges in the indictment. What happened next? Well, according to the feds, the very same day each of those supposed contributions were made, Santos transferred.
The ad for Adam/Hassan interview was shot in my bedroom. Prize picks American Psycho. Told Adam I'm a fan of yours and he made fun of me. Wow. You should have punched him in the face in a video game for that.
What happened next? Well, according to the feds, the very same day each of those supposed contributions were made, Santos transferred the money from Redstone Strategies to and between his own personal bank accounts. Those transfers from Redstone to his bank accounts and between his bank accounts constitute the unlawful monetary transactions in counts 6, 7, and 8. The second criminal scheme in the indictment relates to unemployment benefits. And this one is fairly simple. On June 17th of 2020, Santos applied to receive unemployment benefits through the New York State Department of Labor. Those benefits were funded through the federal government during the COVID-19 pandemic through the CARES Act and administered by New York's Department of Labor. In his June application, Santos claimed to have been unemployed since March 22nd, 2020, and he kept recertifying every single week his unemployment status through April 15th of 2021. In total, the feds say that Santos took over $24,000 in unemployment insurance benefits. The problem? According to the feds, Santos was employed that entire time as a regional director at an investment firm with a salary of about $120,000 per year. Oops, simple mistake. Who among us hasn't done such a thing?
I've made a huge mistake.
After he was arraigned, Santos actually had the gall to complain to the media that the unemployment benefits issue was confusing at the time.
You keep extending the unemployment benefits.
The irony, of course, is that on April 6th of this year, Santos became a leading co-sponsor of a Republican bill that its supporters say will help states recover unlawfully obtained unemployment insurance benefits through the CARES Act. Just no notes. Count 9 of the indictment alleges theft of public money in an amount greater than $1,000. Now that more or less covers the entirety of the unemployment benefits fraud. Interestingly, counts 10 and 11 allege wire fraud for Santos applying for those benefits on 2 separate occasions a week apart in January 2021. Remember, he had to recertify his...
True, we finally found Schrodinger's migrant, the guy who is stealing all the jobs and stealing the unemployment insurance. Oh no.
On a weekly basis from June 2020 to April 2021. So why only the 2 wire fraud charges in January? My guess, and this is only a guess, is that on those 2 occasions, Santos had his unemployment benefits sent to a different bank account than he normally did, one that required crossing state lines and thus having the interstate nexus that federal wire fraud requires. But like I said, that's just a guess.
Now, if I can interject,
I feel like if there's a federal crime on the books, you're almost always committing, or I'm sorry, if there's a crime for in the federal government, you're almost always committing this, because if you ever use a cell phone, like at any point, they can always get you on this like interstate stuff that like elevates it to a federal jurisdiction.
For just 1 second, I know at times it seems like George Santos' identity was stolen by George Santos, but many people suffer identity theft at the hands of negligent companies who have allowed data breaches. Literally millions of letters go out a year saying that there was a data breach and that your data has been compromised. Now, if you received a data breach notification letter, save it, contact my firm, the Eagle Team, because we offer a free consultation and we don't charge any money unless we win. Or contact the Eagle Team with any other legal issues you might be facing. The link is down in the description. Now back to George Santos' legal problems.
Thank you.
The third criminal scheme relates to false statements to Congress. When you're a candidate for Congress, the Ethics in Government Act of 1978, passed in the wake of Watergate, requires that you file a financial disclosure statement. That financial disclosure statement covers a lot, including basically every kind of income and liability. Knowingly and willfully falsifying a financial disclosure statement is a crime. It's a false official statement in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001.
Damn.
George Santos filed the required financial disclosure statements during his 2020 and 2022 congressional campaigns. How'd he do?
Not great, Bob.
In his 2020 financial disclosure statement, Santos said that he earned $55,000 from a single company, when in fact, according to the feds, he earned only about $27,000 from that company, but $25,000 from his investment firm. Remember, the investment firm he was employed at while he was claiming unemployment benefits. Yeah, that one. So while the total amount of income is about the same, he failed to accurately report the sources of his income. That failure constitutes the false statements charge in count 12. In his 2022 financial disclosure statement, things get extra weird. This statement covers 2021 and 2022 up to the reporting date. Among other things, Santos said that his income was $750,000 in salary from the Devolder organization and between $1 and $5 million in dividends from the Devolder organization with no other sources of income. He also claimed to have over $1 million in certain bank accounts. In fact, according to the feds, during that time frame, he received $28,000 from his old investment firm and $20,000 in unemployment insurance payments. And that's it. He didn't have $1 million in any bank account. Those false statements are count 13, the final count of the indictment. Okay, wait, so I lied. There's actually more than just 13 counts in the indictment. After count 13, there are 2 allegations of something called criminal forfeiture. Not civil forfeiture, criminal forfeiture. All that needs to be said about those allegations is this. If the federal government proves the criminal counts, they want the money back. That's it. So those are the allegations in the indictment. But what are the potential consequences for Santos? That's one of the first questions any criminal defendant has for their lawyer. What am I charged with, and what am I facing? There are plenty of collateral consequences for being a felon, for example, but for many defendants, the real question is whether they're going to prison and for how long. If you listen to most media outlets, you'll hear that Santos could face up to 20 years in prison. That's partly due to the DOJ's press release, which very clearly states that Santos faces a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison for the top counts. Now that is legally true, and it's a nice big number that makes for a good headline. But it's incomplete, and frankly, a little bit misleading. It's also frustratingly common in media coverage of criminal cases. Sentences in federal court follow the federal sentencing guidelines, which is determined by the United States Sentencing Commission. Those guidelines were intended originally to be binding on federal judges, but the U.S. Supreme Court struck that down in United States v. Booker in 2005. Federal judges are still required to consult the sentencing guidelines, and a sentence imposed through the proper application of the guidelines is presumed to be reasonable. A federal judge can still, in their discretion, depart from the guidelines, both upwards and downwards, but they have to explain on the record why. And they don't get that presumption of reasonableness. The core of the sentencing guidelines is the sentencing table. The horizontal axis is the defendant's criminal history category, and the vertical axis is the offense level. So if you have, say, a criminal history category 3 and an offense level 22, the presumptive sentence is 51 to 63 months in prison.
Damn.
The higher the criminal history category, or the higher the offense level, the higher the presumptive sentence. Each federal crime has a base offense level. You can then add or subtract to that base offense level under certain circumstances. So let's take wire fraud. Wire fraud has a base offense level of 7. But if the loss as a result of that wire fraud exceeds, say, $15,000, then
Did somebody say loss?
you add 4 to the base level 7 and get 11. And that's just the very beginning. There are all sorts of upwards and downwards adjustments that can be made depending on the nature of the crime, certain characteristics of the victim, the defendant's role in the crime, etc. You can even get 2 to 3 points knocked off for accepting responsibility and pleading guilty. And things get even more complicated when you have multiple offenses and a single charging instrument like Santos does. So look, the federal sentencing guidelines are long. They are detailed. They are, frankly, arcane. And that's why the media usually just repeats the maximum possible sentence language instead of diving into the guidelines. Let's get back to the original question then. What is George Santos looking at in this case? My quick and dirty guess, as low as 1.5 to 3 years in prison. And for those who want to check my work at home, I'm assuming a criminal category of 1 and a combined offense level somewhere around 15 to 19. Of course, where he falls in or around that range will depend on any number of factors. I could be way off. I don't know. Devin asked the state prosecutor to talk about federal crimes. It's his fault. Give me a break. While my guess of 1.5 to 3 years in prison might sound low to some people, keep in mind that that is a fair chunk of time for a person to spend incarcerated. And this may just be the first of many criminal cases that Santos faces.
And would you stop taking pictures of yourself? Your sister's going to jail.
It also reflects something unmistakably true about George Santos. To paraphrase Stephen Attewell, if he's a crook, he's a cheap crook. The crimes he's alleged to have committed in this case are serious, and they're high profile because of who he is. But they aren't particularly complex or far-reaching. The campaign donation scheme was simple. It was a basic con job. And lying to get $24,000 in unemployment insurance is, while shockingly hypocritical for him specifically, it's also just lame.
I know, sir, and I'm a very level-headed individual.
Lame for a man who has spent so much time trying to puff up his personal and financial credentials to impress other people. And as far as at least his 2022 false statements to Congress are concerned, he's probably just trying to look rich, puff up his image, get more donations. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. We deserve better criminals. If his story were a TV show, he'd maybe get 2 seasons. George Santos is like gas station coffee disguised in an expensive cup.
Yeah, that sounds terrible, but luckily for you, you can get some of the world's best coffee from today's sponsor, Trade Coffee. Trade's great because not only do they have a huge selection of your favorite coffees, but they have a fine-tuned matching process that helps you discover fresh coffee based on your taste preferences. I have very specific tastes. I basically want something that tastes like hot chocolate and pairs well with milk, and Trade was able to find me the perfect bean. And let's be honest, you claim to want a rich dark roast, but you really want a coffee milkshake. But either way, Trade has you covered. And now since the weather is getting warmer, they have a huge selection of cold brew coffees as well. With Trade, you can discover new coffees from the nation's top roasters. You choose your coffee, rate it, and your coffee suggestions get even better over time. And it's all conveniently delivered to you. It's really the best coffee website out there. And if you already know what you like, they probably already have your roaster in stock at a great price. You can even choose whole beans or your preferred grind. So if you'd like to give Trade Coffee a try, Legal Eagles will get their first bag free when they sign up. All you have to do is click on the link that's on screen right now or down in the description. And not only get your first bag free, you'll also get free shipping. So get your first bag free by clicking on the link that's on screen right now or down below.
Thanks.
After that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.
Thanks, Legal Eagle. Rip. 7 years. And that's after sentencing. I don't know anything about like how you can get like how good behavior or any of that shit works, so good luck, Georgie boy. We'll miss you. Do I really want to do Hassan Slop?
Speaking of people that are very upset, I wanted to talk about Kneecap. As you guys know, I went and I live streamed the Kneecap Coachella performance.
Frickin'
and in that
epic.
performance, they obviously...
Wait, is there any possible way for me to request robots out of logistics or out of roboports. Can I get these out, or do I have to run around and click all of them to find my fucking robots?
Had a bunch of slides, one of which said one of the slides.
Sponsorship advertising like the videos you watch. I'm way too edgy, dude. Maintain sponsorships. Fuck that. And I just don't want to have to deal with saying something that could lose a sponsor or whatever.
They obviously had a bunch of slides, one of which said one of the slides said Israel, free Palestine, and everyone has now that it went viral on Twitter, all of the pro-Israel accounts have been freaking out over this in what I suspect is the funniest way to get mad about anything. While Israel is straight up massacring Palestinians every day, doing a genocide, continuing to do their genocide with unlimited support from the United States of America, these guys are now very, very mad. Stop anti-Semitism is like contact Golden Voice. And it's too late. They already live streamed it on my live stream, you know? I can't believe it. I can't believe that I can't believe that they said free Palestine and Israel. How dare they? But the reason why I think it's like, additionally, the reason why I think it's like kind of funny, and I know they don't give a shit about this at all, and they welcome this kind of retaliation, not dissimilar to myself. People bringing up the Nova Festival. Yeah, you can't even say Israel anymore, okay? You can't say Israel anymore, but you certainly can't say Israel in a festival setting. Why can't you say Israel in a festival setting? Because October 7 happened and Nova Festival happened. So, in my opinion, it's one of the funniest ways to be like, how dare you criticize Israel in a festival setting when October 7 happened. That's insane. That is an insane way to frame this conversation and to try to personally victimize yourself. Here's Elon Levy. Of course, this was my favorite one. Israel at a music festival after the Nova Massacre is like America at a World Trade Conference after 9/11. First of all, who would ever do such a thing? Who would ever say such a thing? I mean, that's crazy. You forgot the rest. Israel, free Palestine. The Disturbed lead singer's post on Instagram. I didn't know. What is this? Fixed it for you at Kneecap, at Hassan Piker, at Coachella. Come on, free Palestine is a human rights scam being fed to you by radical Islamists who openly call for the death of all Jews and non-Muslims. I doubt you'd be applauding like sheep if this were the Noah Music Festival. You were slaughtered like sheep.
Jesus.
Oh, I love this guy. He is so fucking insane. Soy right with leftist meme lengths. I know. They're even.
Okay. I can't watch this under politics. It's just drama slop. Nick Fuentes weighs in on Doji. Looks like Doji has been a total flop. During the election, Musk promised $2 trillion in cuts. After the inauguration, he lowered that to $1 trillion in cuts. As of last week, Doge is claiming $150 billion in cuts, of which only $60 billion have receipts, and those receipts are filled with errors. Today, following the news that Q1 Tesla income is down 71%, Musk says he's stepping back from government work to focus on Tesla. So after 3 months and delivering at most 3% of the promised spending cuts, it seems like Doge may be on its way out. A noble effort, but doomed from the start. This shouldn't come as a surprise. The vast majority of federal spending goes towards entitlements in the military. Trump was never going to touch either, and if anything, he would be partial to increasing military spending, which he, of course, did. What's more, even if you could find $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse without touching military and entitlements, Trump also promised to deepen the corporate tax cut. Along with additional tax cuts, it was never going to happen. Just like with Iran, mass deportations, and tariffs, all of this was predictable from the jump if you can just read between the lines. You can just do things, true, but you need the right personnel, organization, discipline, and a plan, none of which Trump ever has. Damn. Fuentes is a Trump hater. What is this? Big if true Sweatstony. Wait. These are all the good robots I had? Seriously? I didn't make any of these? Hold on. L. Logistics. Look, where are all these guys at? 407 green guys. Where are my green logistics robots? Why are they not coming here? Because I didn't request them. Just kidding, sorry. Okay. Okay. The White House has put itself and the country in a bad situation, but doesn't realize it yet. Around the April 10th, China to the USA trade shut down. It takes about 30 days for containers to go from China to LA, 45 to Houston by sea, 45 to Chicago by train, 55 to New York by sea. That means there are no economic effects of what was done on April 10th until about May 10th. Around that time, it's already started to happen. Trucking work is going to dry up. Oh, there are a couple guys in chat that kept saying that they work for some trucking company and that like scheduling was getting worse and worse for it. Around that time, it's already started to happen. Trucking work is going to dry up. Warehouses will start doing layoffs because no labor is needed to unload containers, and some products will be out of stock, reducing the need for shipping labor. All of this will start in the LA area. After about 2 weeks, it'll start hitting Chicago and Houston. Let's say the White House, after 3 weeks, changes its mind on May 31st. This isn't working out like we thought it would. Tariffs back to zero. Let's say China says bygones be bygones. We'll go back to how things were. Let's say every factory in China that got screwed by their orders being canceled says the same thing. No problem. We'll make and ship. Problem is, even under the most favorable conditions of China and factories restarting economic ties as though nothing happened, it will be at least another 30 days before economic activity is revived. And that's just in LA, and Chicago and Houston need to wait another 45. New York at that point will still be getting containers from before April 10th. They will just have 50 days, or they will then have 50 days, May 31st minus April 10th, of zero economic activity at that point, or at the ports, in trucking, Chinese goods, and warehousing. The whole situation is a bit like lockdowns. Once you shut down, it takes a long time to get economic activity back to where it was, if you ever can. Cute. Some of those goods coming from China will probably be replaced by goods coming from Europe. So it won't be like probably quite as dramatic as that poster says, but it still will probably be pretty bad, yeah. We'll see. Shit will get cray. Shit will get cray. What is this?
But first, a Wisconsin judge under arrest and facing charges accused of flouting federal law to help an illegal immigrant.
Oh, don't care about these. We already went over this today. You following what's going on with India and Pakistan? Nope.
All we have done here is massively erode brand America. It's gone from freedom, generosity, military might, prosperity, risk aggressiveness, opportunity, rule of law, to toxic uncertainty. And that brand does not command margins. It commands negative margin.
Bum, 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 bum.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
How you doing, Scott? Guess what? Guess what? We are
Kara?
Webby winners once again.
Oh, my God. I just want to thank the Academy.
Again,
Webby
Pivot
winners.
won the Webby Award and the People's Choice Award, both of them.
Yeah.
We liked the people of us for the best
And the
business
judges,
podcast.
right?
And the judges, the judges and the people. We got a lot to get to today, but let's take a moment. And also, you won for Prop G. What did you win over there?
We run for Prop G Markets, or for Raging Moderates, we were an honoree, which just means please send in your $1,300 a year next year to be considered for something.
No.
And then, by the way, this business, we should be in the awards business.
Yeah.
This is such a racket. And then Prop G Markets won the People's Choice Award, but not the Judges Award. So the cultural elite or the deep state of podcasting has decided they're smarter than the people who picked Prop G Markets. But Pivot, there was just sort of no argument across anybody.
Across the board. Will this make us more obnoxious or less obnoxious? Probably more.
I think we're pretty much hitting the limit of obnoxious. I can't imagine. Yeah, I don't see us getting more
I got a lot of
obnoxious.
congratulations, and I'm like, it's the Webby. It's the Webby. We're very happy. We have to think of a 5-word acceptance speech for that, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. Scott Galloway is my husband.
There you go.
I don't like that at all. Do you have any idea? Think of one. You're going to go get it. Someone's going to go
The
get it.
dinner. It's in. My team's been to the dinner. They love it. They say it's a ton of fun.
It is. Oh, I love it. I remember I got the Lifetime Achievement.
Yeah, Jesus,
You're going to get one.
I want to
was
go
so
to
much fun.
Lifetime Achievement Award.
It was lovely. I had a lovely time there. I had met lots of lovely celebrities that I like to this day.
I want a midlife crisis award. I want an award for best midlife crisis. Like really leaning in.
Let me ask you a pressing question. If you could win any award, right? You and I are not award people. We really aren't. But what would it be? What award would you want to have?
Other than the Adult Video Tripod
course,
Award?
Obviously.
Tripod Award. That's good. I just made that up. My nickname in the fraternity. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why.
Okay. What would be the award? A real life award?
A real one? I don't know. The National Medal of Freedom, whatever it is, with at the White House, they pin it on
they
you.
put the thing on
Maybe
you?
it'd be at the Kennedy Center. I don't know.
No, not anymore. No.
That'll come back though.
Yeah, I know.
I don't really care about priests. Don't want a Nobel.
Did you win any awards in your life? Have you won any?
I was thinking about that. The last award I won from these other than these Webbies is in. Did you have a high school poll?
No.
Most handsome, most successful, most likely to succeed.
No.
You didn't have that in your high school?
No, I went to a snotty private school. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, same. We never had things like that. It kind of seems really toxic, no? Like schools that would give out awards like that? It feels like it would just lead to a bunch of kids like fucking hating themselves. But my school was so strict. They had like I don't even know if we were allowed to do birthday party invites. I don't think we were. You weren't allowed to, or you were allowed to do birthday party invites in school, but only if you invited every single classmate to your birthday party. Otherwise, you weren't allowed to. To issue them. Yeah.
I did. I won Most Comical and Steve Martin.
Is the Detroit event going to be streamed on your channel? I believe so. Yeah.
Which dates me.
Oh wait, is there a Steve Martin Award and Most Comical?
Well, they did these things like Richard Pryor, so we could get the black kids. I mean, we thought we were being woke, and yet we were being very racist. And we had all these celebs that you were supposed to be in the '80s, like the Blondie, or they said this is who you are.
Steve Martin, that's perfect. Actually,
I won Steve Martin and I won Most Comical.
Oh, I see that. Most Comical. That's so funny. You weren't like best, handsomest job.
No, not most likely to succeed, not smartest, not most likable, none of that.
No. I won the Bunn Award in my freshman year of college, which was the journalism.
Yeah,
I won as a freshman. Seniors got it, and it upset the entire ecosystem, and the seniors hated me for winning it as a freshman.
I think they hated you for other reasons.
Yes, that's a fair point. I won the Loeb Award once.
That's big. That's journalism, right?
Yeah.
This was all. You're doing what I'm doing. You asked me not really caring. You just
I didn't know. I wanted to actually.
Keep in mind, we only have 90 minutes here, so rifle through your awards.
No, I haven't won much. I would like to win the MacArthur Genius Award. That's what I want.
that would be pretty cool.
That's the
Actually,
one I want.
You know what
can't
award?
be thirsty for it to win it, though. You have to pretend you're.
You know what award I aspire to, but will never happen just through randomness, is there's something called, I think it's called the Carnegie Award. And it's basically the burning car award. And that is, they give about, I think, between 60 and 100 a year to people who have risked their own life on the spot to save someone else's life. So it's literally rushing into a burning house.
Interesting. I would run into the burning house to see.
I think you would.
I would. I would know a burning house runner into.
It's
That's a good award.
It's a really interesting, I love those sorts of philosophical questions, though, that in faced with that type of situation, and by the way, to be more thoughtful, men are more likely to run out of the field and try and save their comrades and get shot doing it, and women are more likely, and we hate to establish any sort of gender rules here, but women are more likely, like, let's think this through and not be idiots.
Yeah.
Like, how do we accomplish the mission?
Without dying.
And slow down and be more thoughtful. And quite frankly, that peanut butter and chocolate is really useful in all situations, including combat situations, right?
Are you good in a jam? I did Outward Bound. I was pretty good in a jam.
I'd like to think...
Wait, what is Outward Bound? How big was your school if you were required to invite everyone? I think it was around 200 people per class. But when I say invite everyone, it was invite everybody in your like homeroom. So you'd had to do 25 invites. You just didn't do it during school. But again, I think in retrospect, I'm totally guessing just based on what I saw on TV. I feel like it was probably a better way to do it, because it feels like otherwise you end up with these situations where like birthday party invites are this mega stressful thing for a kid to go through, because as soon as people start inviting people to birthday parties and they don't invite some people, it just feels like bullying for little kids. I don't know.
Are you panicky?
I don't... We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die.
We should do like a survival thing. That would be interesting.
Yeah, no.
You'd want me along.
I'm good at calming down emotionally fraught situations when people get upset. I break up fights a lot at bars, not a lot, but like 3 or 4 times.
I always establish dominance, and that's how I work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was surprised. I was really kind of like, it was sort of I did Outward Bound and a bunch of other things like that, and I literally was like, I shall be running this now.
Outward Bound is like a leadership wilderness retreat with hiking and shit for high schoolers. Okay.
We shall do what I say. But
I find as I get older, I'm really happy for someone else to take charge.
Yeah. Yeah,
really
you'd
happy.
be a good team member.
Especially if she's wearing leather and I have to pay her a couple €100.
But leather. Yeah. Anyway, we have a lot to speak. Anyway, congratulations on the Webby again. We're very excited. Thank you, Webby Awards.
And congratulations to our team.
Yes, all the team.
Yeah,
Shall we name
Zoe,
them? Go
Taylor.
ahead. Good. Zoe, Taylor, everybody. And name Drew is amazing for us.
Who's Drew? Oh, the tech guy's been with me 15 years. Memo to self. Remember Drew.
Anyway, we thank Vox. Yeah, Vox. Sure. The shot. Yay.
Yay. Vox.
Yeah. Vox.
Yay. The suits. The corporate. The headquarters.
That's not fair. They don't wear suits. They're not suit people. They're not suit people. They're actually lovely.
Can you imagine if we've been with them 7 years? What does that say about how easygoing and nice they are?
They have to be.
Between the two of us, we've been with them. The chances for a blow up between you, me, and any third party.
Yeah. Are big. Has he ever yelled at us? No, he never does.
No, Jim's the nicest guy. Jim's the nicest guy in media.
Yeah, he is.
He really is. He's the nicest guy in media. Anyway, enough about us.
Enough about us. Thank you, Webby Awards. It's well deserved by us, let's just say. Okay, all right, we've got a lot to get to today, including there's so much going on. Elon announcing he's stepping back from Doge following Tesla's terrible earnings report, just as we predicted. Trump sends the markets on yet another wild ride because he's so ridiculous. But first, Instagram co-founder Kevin Systrom testified this week that the app was underfunded after Meta bought it, boosting the FTC's argument the company was illegally anti-competitive. Systrom said that Zuckerberg was not investing in the Instagram app because he saw it as a threat to Facebook, which he felt was better. He was incorrect, but that's what he felt. I've interviewed Systrom, and let's listen to this clip because they used it in the trial to try to impugn Kevin Systrom.
We were struggling to keep this set up, $500 million valuation, and then Mark came along and was like, hey, how about I double that? And you get to keep working on what you love, and you get all the expertise of Facebook. You get to work with me, Cheryl, Schrapp, et cetera. And that sounded like a really good deal. And if you look in retrospect, I think it was a great deal. Think about all the things we've accomplished being part of Facebook, all the things we have plugged into, whether it's hiring, spam fighting, the ad system. I mean, we have thousands of salespeople who are basically selling ads for Instagram, and we snapped our fingers to access them. Right. So a lot of really great stuff. Yes, I snapped my fingers. No, but I guess my point is like...
I get it. It's like which would have happened without the other kind of thing.
I mean,
if
I
not
bet
for
you we
this,
would have
then
been
that.
successful, isn't it?
What's a Detroit show? I announced in so many areas. What the fuck? Look at my if you look at the community tab on my YouTube channel, I think it'll literally be there. There's tickets. I think it's like 10 tickets left or something.
Independent company as well.
So they were using this to say that he was happy there. And now let's listen then to a clip from 2023 at South by Southwest where I interviewed Kevin.
I think the worst part of the sale was just like trying to both accomplish something great with the company and also merge it into a company that didn't quite know how to look at you. Were you a competitor? Were we excited to own you? Like, it's like a roommate who moves in and you're like, oh, like this person's really cool, but also their stuff's everywhere.
Right.
That's kind of what it felt like for 8 years. But
bad roommate.
Yeah, it's like, are there any good roommates? I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why like people shouldn't have roommates. But it was challenging, but we did great things.
That's the attitude that Kevin had for a long time. He was very frustrated internally. Mark was petty with him, I think, and jealous. I think that's no question. It's an interesting trial. It was interesting that they had Kevin there, and not interesting like Evan Spiegel, who turned down, who I interviewed yesterday, by the way, in Washington, at Snapchat, who turned down, and then Facebook proceeded to blast them by taking all their ideas. Any thoughts on this? I mean, I think people publicly try to put on a good face, right? You've been in these situations, Scott.
Yeah, look, Kevin strikes me as a very talented entrepreneur. I don't doubt that anything he says there's some veracity to it. But he cashed their check. What a shocker! The current CEO or the CEO was on top and wanted to maintain his platform, his kind of firstborn, Facebook, maybe even at the expense of Instagram. But the thing that sort of countered all this is whatever he was feeling or whatever resources he was trying to starve one of the kids from, he clearly changed his mind, because Instagram is now responsible for over half of ad revenue and is growing faster. And so at some point,
it's a better product.
At some point, the Zuck realized this and has absolutely turned it into a monster of business. So that may have been true then, but clearly, if that was true, Mark has seen the light. And what I have found, or what is interesting, I had dinner with Jonathan Haidt the other night. And he actually said, I get so emotional and biased about this stuff. He said some of the controls that Meta has put in place for parents, even though they're not easy to use, and you can criticize them. He said the one that gets away with more than, or doesn't get the scrutiny it deserves, and he thinks is actually the most mendacious, is Snap.
Really interesting. Why?
Well, things like their add-on feature, where you can, the core components of it, he kind of said are sort of tailor-made, likely unintentionally, for drug dealing and for people reaching out to minors, because that feature where you can add on people near to you, immediately it adds people near to you, is perfect for a drug dealer.
That's, I don't know if it's because I'm a celebrity, or I feel like even if I was an ordinary person, I would worry about this. Those like apps that have things that auto detect people around you or automatically show you people around you for stuff, that just feels really weird. I don't know, man. It seems kind of creepy. No?
I suppose. I would push back, because I think they've always done a lot of moderation. They've always, when they have a problem, they fix it. They don't bellyache about it. They had a whole problem with data. I'm just saying they fix things quickly, and they do moderate. They moderate much heavier, and they don't. What I'm saying is the attitude isn't, ugh, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, we should fix that. Like, I would agree. I think it's a locational thing, and it's more for your friends, and therefore it opens it up more. But I have kids on it. I would rather have them on Snapchat than Facebook, because I think they got inundated on it.
Well, they're not going to be on Facebook. No young person's on Facebook.
But or
Instagram, I think Snap is actually pretty scary, and also the whole zeitgeist of it, where it's disappearing messages.
It was, right.
I mean, isn't that kind of perfect for people looking to reach? It doesn't have to have a certain level of lack of accountability.
But in this information, I don't think that's why they did it. I think it was because they thought privacy was critical. That's not why they did it. I was there.
But regardless of what, I don't think any of those people are looking to harm children.
No.
But when they have features that make it easy for adults to reach out to minors, isn't that a problem?
It is, but I don't agree with Jonathan. I think Facebook has done less and been more resistant to dealing with things, and they're the big dog.
I would agree with you.
And I think Snapchat is. I'd rather have my kids, and I get the locational feature. And if kids open it up, there are things you can do to it to stop that. Right? It's much more open to fixing, and it certainly has had issues around drug dealers and things like that. Every one of these platforms has. I'm just saying, platforms who have had problems like Reddit and Snapchat have always been willing to change in ways and admit in ways Facebook never has. And I ultimately think Facebook doesn't really matter because they're the biggest and they have the most impact on everybody,
I think that's a fair
especially
point.
through Instagram. And so they should be the most responsible.
My kids are on Snap, though. Yep. Aren't your kids on? Or I guess your kids have aged out of it.
I think Louis doesn't use it as much, but he definitely, that was the only one he used. And there was one incident where I did catch him with a girl on Snap, but using the location features. I told you that, didn't I? I caught him. He went out. He left the house, and I found him on Snap because he's so dumb with his.
Oh, because he left his Snap map on. Where is wait? How old is her kid? Did she say? She probably said I missed it.
Technology. And I said, I know exactly where you are. I'm coming to get you. And
come on, be a brother.
No,
help him.
Actually, his brother turned him in. His brother's the one that turned him in.
Whoa! What?
His brother narked on him?
Yeah, well, he's like, Lou's not here. And then we let's use the Snap feature. It's a long story, but he wrote me the most legendary text of all time, which is why I love him so much. I wrote him and I said, he took an Uber. He used my Uber to get to some sort of.
It's a lot of breadcrumbs. It sounds like he wanted to be.
He was. I was like, literally. So he wrote. I'm like, you are so grounded. I texted him, you are so grounded. I'm going to kill you. And he writes back. He goes, sometime it's going to be like that, Chief. And that's what I'm going to read it at his wedding. I love that line. Sometime it's going to be like that, Chief. Anyway, let's go. Go ahead. You're about to enter into this period.
What an absolute fucking baller.
In high school, I asked for women to my prom, and all of them said no.
Yeah.
And my friend Adam Markman, who I think felt empathy for me, set me up with a woman, actually one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. This woman named Lena. I posted the picture of her on my Instagram. Anyways, Lena and I went to the Windward prom, and I was so excited. I was telling my mom I was going to a prom, and she went with me, and I rented a tuxedo, and I didn't know how to put the fucking thing on because I'd never worn a tuxedo before. I didn't know how to do cufflinks or anything. Anyways, I said, and she said, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, the after party's near here, and I'm like, and I got a key. I just might bring her back after all of this to here. And I did manage to get her back to my place, and you know there was firewood in the fireplace that my mom had put in there.
Oh no, your mom's so good.
Wasn't that nice? She looked at me. I was 6'2", 140 pounds with bad acne, and she's like, he needs all the help he can get. He needs all.
Well, you were about to enter this period with your young man that you have, so I hope you've done a good job.
No.
Anyway, my kids are.
You know, my mom used to say to me, she'd say, when I was talking about my women troubles, which was mostly an inability to get a woman in my life, she would look at me and she'd be like, wine.
I did do. I mean, you have to do the responsible things: the sex talk, the condom talk, everything else. But just treat women well was the one that I really pushed on him. Anyway, we've got to move on.
Well, I told you about the sex talk I had with my son, right?
Yes, you did. We're not going to do that again.
When I went into his room with a banana and a condom, and he said, "What's the banana for?" And I said, "Well, I can't get hard on an empty stomach."
Oh my God!
Never gets old.
You can't tell that joke.
Never gets old.
It gets old. It gets old.
Never gets old.
Once again,
I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
All right, we're gonna. The invading Poland one is not allowed anymore.
Oh, by the way,
no,
that's wrong.
That joke's not allowed anymore.
I need to correct it. It's wrong.
What?
The Polish cavalry, that was an attack meant to divert German forces, and it was effective. And it's an insult to the brave men of the Polish cavalry.
Okay.
That attack was actually an effective diversion of German, they weren't tanks, but German armored vehicles. I've had literally 8 Polish historians reach out to me and say, stop
for
saying
your dick
that.
joke. Yeah, stop the dick. I think just because it's not funny. But anyway, let's keep going. It's not the only legal trouble Meta is dealing with. Meta and Apple are the first companies to be fined for violations of the EU's Digital Markets Act. Of course, this is going to happen. Antitrust rules. Meta about 230 million. Apple's 570 million. Both have been given 60 days to comply. It's hardly any money. So, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on that?
On the antitrust?
Yeah, the Europeans are extracting funds. I think they're probably not going to pay, and they'll just keep, objecting to it for a while.
The question I have, maybe, I'm hoping you know more about this than I do, but is it okay, everything's fine and continue? Because that's a parking ticket in terms of their...
No, they have to comply with the rules. So they have to decide what to do. They can pull out of the things. They can close down services. They've done that in various countries. I think in Canada, Facebook pulled out of news. They don't put news on there. And only right-wing... There was a great piece about how sort of right-wing blather invades social media there because Facebook has pulled news organizations out of because of something they didn't like. So they'll have to either comply with the rules or they're going to have to leave.
And this is... I mean, okay, so the good guys, you could argue, are winning here. So the EU find them both for violating the new Digital Markets Act, and it's the first time that the law has been enforced. It's 570 million for Apple and 230 million for Meta.
Yeah, I just said that. Yeah.
But we'll say it again.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, I'm saying it again.
I know you have research in front of you, but go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, and then so what is that? Half of what Apple and Meta make in one day. So the question for me is it going to happen every month unless they change their behavior, or is this like that old fine where they effectively are like, okay, you were bad, now continue to be bad, and you got caught this time and we're fining you, but it's not going to
I shall find out. I do not know that. Any Europeans can write us, but I don't know. I think they're going to do other things to not comply because compliance is problematic across the globe from what I understand. They'll figure out some workaround of some sort, but I will find out and I will let you know next week. Is there any predictions for that Meta case from your perspective? Most people think it's pretty weak, but Systrom's testimony was definitely strong, I think.
Well, I do believe one of these companies, I don't know which one, is going to prophylactically spend something. I think that they're so smart that when they feel the wolves circling,
Google,
they're going to get out ahead of it and go to them and say, all right, what's our blood offering here? What if we spun, what if we sold Chrome to OpenAI, or what if we spun Instagram, I don't know, or WhatsApp? I think we're going to see our first spin in the next 12 months.
All right, that's a good prediction. I don't think it's going to be Facebook. He's very stubborn. But I suspect Google, which has a much tougher case.
Spun Instagram, I don't know, or what, ahead of it and go to them and say, all right, what's our blood offering here? What if we spun, what if we sold Chrome to OpenAI, or what if we spun Instagram, I don't know, or WhatsApp? I think we're going to see our first spin in the next 12 months.
All right, that's a good prediction. I don't think it's going to be Facebook. He's very stubborn. But I suspect Google, which has a much tougher case. This case, they feel very confident over Meta about this particular case, just so you know. They're very confident. Although they sort of communicate on social media like they're desperate, which is interesting. So next one, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin has lost the retrial of a 2017 defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. Palin filed a lawsuit after the Times ran an editorial.
2017, Jesus.
Claiming she had engaged in a political incitement ahead of the 2011 shooting of Gabby Giffords, incorrectly drawing ties to an advertisement. The Times issued a correction in under 24 hours, but Palin's legal team argued the mistake was actual malice. The bar for actual malice is high, established in 1964 case, very famous, New York Times versus Sullivan, which the Trump administration is trying to get overturned or changed. Protects news outlets from liability while they when they publish false statements, as long as they did not do so knowingly or willingly or with actual malice. Supreme Court Justice, again, Thomas and Gorsuch have called for the court to revisit the malice standard for well-known people. If you're not a well-known person, you can sue for defamation much easier. Obviously, Palin is super well known. So she came back the second time. It was like in 2 hours. The Times had great lawyers, FYI, and also the person who made the mistakes, James Bennett, who has since left the Times, apologized to Palin on the stand this time and actually cried. I know him pretty well. I thought it was quite dignified for him to do so, apologize like that, and he probably really helped the case. I don't think Yeshua's ever going to win, but I think this is over. This is the last stop for her. I don't know if she can keep appealing, but any thoughts?
I think she's just a trivia question at this point. She caught this moment of charisma and fire, and then over the course of the last 10 or 12 years, Governor Palin has just revealed herself to not be a serious person.
Yeah, it's a very serious way. I usually do jokes, but go ahead.
Well, and then I think this is actually really important because I think this would have inspired a ton of...
Yeah.
The reality is one of the key tenets of America that's really wonderful is pretty much anyone can say pretty much anything about pretty much anybody. If it ends up, you're spreading misinformation against someone less powerful than you, not famous, and it creates economic harm or undue stress, then you have a libel or slander case. And I think the law mostly gets it right. And they said in this case, look, you are such a public figure. You continue to say kind of insane things. People respond, people cover you, people are quite frankly biased against you, and they're allowed to be biased against you. And she was unable to prove that. To me, this seemed fairly obvious. And
But people were worried about this case, and a lot of others, including
age,
why George Stephanopoulos, they settled for that thing that he did to Nancy Mace. I think there were probably some sort of text that he was warned several times in that case, or something. So there was something there for the reason Disney caved. There must have been. I talked to people that say they were worried that it would go to the Supreme Court. Everyone's worried about a Times versus Sullivan case getting to the Supreme Court, which it eventually will, because the right is very much intent on cutting back. They're trying to get rid of slap laws. They're trying to get If
Times v. Sullivan were to get overturned, it would make it significantly easier for public figures to sue the media for quote unquote lies, but it would create a huge chilling effect on the media because you'd be really worried about reporting on somebody, because if you couldn't prove it was true, now you might be liable for a ton of civil damages all over and people would just stop writing bad stories basically about people in the media.
Protects journalists from being,
or
nuisance
public
lawsuits in many states, not every state, which is why they try to sue in places like Texas and other places. But they're on the march trying to overturn these things, just like Trump tried to overturn the Civil Rights Act this week. Anyway, it was good for the New York Times. It was the right decision, you're right. And lastly, late Zappos co-founder Tony Hsieh did have concrete plans for his $1.2 billion fortune when he died. The recently found will, according to the Wall Street Journal. This was interesting. I know Tony very well. It was a sad end to a lovely person who was quite troubled. The document notes that if any family member challenges wishes, all will receive nothing, marks $3 million for Hsieh's alma mater, Harvard, and allocates over a whole bunch of money to undisclosed recipients he wanted to surprise. He left a lot of Post-it notes of things, and so he had a real problem, really essentially a drug problem at the end of his life. And they thought he had died without instructions, and he really, the last part of his life during COVID was really disturbing, I think. So, it's a coda. I'm glad he gave money to Harvard and other places, but it just reminded me of a very sad story of
It is really sad, and I remember being invited. He had created this kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of cool e-commerce hub commune
in Vegas,
thing. In Vegas, and he invited me to speak. They used to do these little gatherings, and everyone said, "Oh, you should go. It's a total party." And I never went. But his is sort of a tragic lesson on if you don't keep some perspective around why people are around you.
Yeah.
And also, he's a big boy. He made his own decisions. But there's this, I forget the adage, the more famous you become, the lonelier you get, essentially. And he struck me as someone who really struggled with loneliness. And when I met with the head of Warner Brothers Film, and we spitball ideas. And one of my ideas, I think the most, there was that whole raft of big tech. There was Bad Blood, We Crashed, the one about Uber. And I said the most interesting one hasn't been told. I think the story of Tony Hsieh is actually the most interesting story.
That's a great idea. It is interesting. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Tony and interviewed him many times. He was a gentle soul. We would have a running joke because he was a hugger. He'd always be like, come here. He did this happiness tour, which sort of was a tell. He was so sad he needed to have a happiness tour. But he's always like, I'm going to hug you. And I said, I'll break your arms if you do. I did a video, which I would send you, but you wouldn't watch, of my tour of their Zappos office. It was a very cult, kind of, how Japanese companies, they do calisthenics together and that kind of stuff. He was trying to have this sort of happiness thing, and he had a guy who was head of happiness there and would take you on the tour, and they'd have all this a lot of candy happening, a lot of sugar, a lot of creative stuff in the office with the people, and everyone had their own little teams. I called it forced fun. I was like, I don't want to have any forced fun with people at work, and but he tried to create these others, and he did the same thing in Vegas, trying to revive downtown Vegas. And it was a lot of it was much about him, and he had this holacracy thing. We wrote about it a bunch at Recode. He had a whole theory of management, and it just was. I remember last time I saw him, I thought, he came to Code every year, and he's a very good poker player, and he was drinking. He had a certain drink he drank a lot of. I can't remember. It's not absinthe, but it was like that. It was something Fernet. He loved Fernet. That was it. And he was so sad, you could tell, and was forced jocularity, but a very gentle soul. Anyway.
So back to me. And I'll relate this to nitrous. I love nitrous, and I have terrible dental hygiene. I've come out of the closet as somebody. I brush my teeth twice a day. That's it. I think I've flossed maybe 6 times in my life.
I love flossing.
And
I have terrible dental hygiene. I brush my teeth twice a day. Okay, Chief.
Literally like social shaming. And every time I go into the dentist to get my teeth cleaned, they're like, your gums are a little bit inflamed. You really should do this. I'm like, look, you're going to give me a bunch of shit, a bunch of pics, a bunch of devices. I'm not going to use any of it. I get my teeth cleaned every 3 months. I want you to turn the nitrous up. I want you to turn on Tom Petty. I will be back here in 3 months, but save the fucking speech. I don't have good dental hygiene.
You can't fix it if you don't do that. You need to have everything. You have to do
what
the water,
the
the pulsing
health
water.
Industrial complex? No. If you get your teeth cleaned every 3 months, that helps.
You're going to have no gums, and I'm going to laugh at your denture someday. You need to do those things. You need to have I'm sending you a water pick. You need a water pick at least. Water picks are great. I do a water pick twice a day. I love it. It's great. My gums are excellent. Anyway, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, enough with the water pick.
No joke. My son won't come to our bathroom anymore because I traumatized him by chasing him around with a water pick. But
okay. All right, it's not a weapon. When we come back,
it's an awesome weapon.
to Tesla, and Scott makes a great prediction. Scott, we're back. Elon says he's shocker of shocker. Elon says he's scaling back this time at Doge starting in May, claiming his work is mostly done, which means he got nothing done. He will instead be allocating more of his time to Tesla. The announcement came in the wake of Tesla's brutal earnings report, with net income falling 71% during the first quarter of 2025. In a letter to shareholders, the company referenced changing political sentiment that could have meaningful impact on demand for our products in the near term, you think. Tesla shares were up over 5% following his announcement he's returning to the company, which is shocking because I think him not returning to the company is probably better for it. And as of this recording, it's still up. We've, of course, been calling this for weeks. Scott, let's listen to what you said back in February.
Doge and Elon Musk are going to fade away because you can be sure he's doing the math. And he's like, even if I can get rid of all those pesky regulators, I'm still losing money here because my sales are plummeting because the general public across the U.S., much less Europe, when they see these idiots surrendering to Putin and when they see the type of recklessness and they see that they're not saving any money, all they're doing is making our government less competent. You're going to see Tesla sales continue to plummet, Tesla stock continue to go down, and I think he's going to fade back to the corporate sector.
Boom goes Scott Galloway. This is why we want a Webby. This is why. So it all came true. Obviously, besides the shares being up, though, if you take apart the report, they would have been drastically non-profitable had it not been for selling emissions things that Trump is trying to get rid of, and investments, I think, in Bitcoin or something like that. It earned this $595 million. And again, these regulatory credits to other automakers, which are going to be rolled back, was critical to that. It wasn't because of cars. Do you think the company, let's go for more, has the company been permanently damaged? And again, I would underscore, it's not just the political stuff. They haven't made a great product. They made the Cybertruck, which is a dud, and they haven't rolled out great products at other car makers because all other car makers are going up in EVs and hybrids. So more than 47% of Americans have a negative view of the company, according to a new CNBC survey. More than 52% have a negative view of Musk. So how do they get out of the brand hole? Also financially, he's touting robo-taxis, which he says will move the financial needle in a significant way. This is not true. He's got competitors with Waymo. He's predicting 1 million units of the Optimus robots in less than 5 years. I think Optimus robots is the Cybertruck of the next thing that he's doing. So what do you see in the next couple of? Let's have some predictions from Scott Galloway on this topic.
Yeah, but whatever I predict about Tesla tends to be wrong. But
I'm not talking about the stock because I think you were right about. I'm talking about, can they pull out of this hole? One, can they pull? I think they can't, but I would love to know what you think.
Well, it all comes down to one thing. Right. It's very mundane. It's product. If they come up with a hit product, they're kind of back. The problem is that this has become a meme stock, and keep in mind, automotive revenue declined 20% year on year, Kara.
Right.
They're now the fastest declining automobile company, I think, in the world. I'm having trouble thinking of an automobile company that declined 20% year on year. And what is just so fucking cynical about Elon Musk is he goes after parachutes into town with a chainsaw and starts talking about government waste. Without government subsidies, this company would have lost money.
Yeah.
It's just so incredibly cynical. It's government largesse and subsidies.
These emissions, these regulatory.
That are the only reason that Tesla was in the black. And then the thing about Tesla that said that we're not even an automotive company, and if we are an automotive company, we're an entirely different type of automotive company, is they could point to the fact that electric cars have much fewer parts, dramatically collapsing the supply chain. He milled a lot of his own products, which would increase margin. He's technically the most vertical automaker in the world, and also to Tesla's credit, it's the most American-made car in America, meaning more parts that go into their car are from America. And as a result, in 2022, Tesla had operating margins of 20%, which is staggering. That's at least double what the other big automakers report in terms of operating margin. But what's happened this year, this quarter, their operating margins have dropped to 2.1%. So this is an unprofitable, government subsidized. I mean, this is DeLorean. This is a company that's riding on government subsidies.
Explain for the kids what DeLorean is. Just so
do you remember John DeLorean? So
yes, I do.
John DeLorean was kind of a man's man in the 70s. I think he came from Chrysler GM, and he was considered the best automobile designer. He designed the Pontiac GTO, and he raised a shit ton of money to start a new automobile company called DeLorean that was famously portrayed in Back to the Future. And he got huge subsidies from the United Kingdom to say, the United Kingdom said, all right, we're going to give this company enormous subsidies to try and re-inspire manufacturing domestically, similar to a tariff. And then the car was kind of underpowered and just didn't have any consumer reception. And then this photo came out of, I think it was a warehouse in Ireland showing thousands of DeLoreans just sitting there. Yeah. He was on the ropes. The UK said no more subsidies. It was not selling. And basically they set up a sting, the US government, to try and entrap him, and they did. And gave him the opportunity and seduced a guy, in my opinion, unfairly, who was desperate to pull his company out of this tailspin, and he agreed to finance or take part in what was ultimately a cocaine trade, and he was arrested on the spot. I believe he served some time, and then he converted to Christianity, and he was the. You want to talk about a fall from grace? He was also married to one of the most beautiful women and a big model at the time, I think Christina Ferrara, I think her name was.
That's right. Yeah.
But he was an American icon that really fell from grace, and there's a couple. I mean, a lot of life lessons here, but more specifically, cars are almost impossible to make on a single platform. Rivian, which is an amazing car, if you buy one for 80 grand, it's costing them 120 grand. It's all about scale. Yeah. And when the sales of Tesla go down, it's an especially big hit to earnings, because this is a business all about scale. And when you start descaling, your profits are the tail of the whip. But it's insane that this company and the stock went up. That's what I don't get.
Well, because they think, it's a meme stock. Like, it's never. Here's the problem. He has been warned by his own employees about the Cybertruck. He was warned about different things where they warned. The other thing is, as we talked about last week, rolling odometers faster, all stuff like that. Saying we're gonna, like, I think this week he said he keeps going on.
That odometers faster. We looked at that at anything else last night. That's a bullshit case. That case is going nowhere.
On about self-driving. That is not. He's He's nowhere near. He's been bragging, as you noted. You put the list of things he's told untruths about, or just, well, he's dreaming. I'll say his dreams of what's going to happen. And so if he's got to deliver and not promise, and the same thing with Doge. 2 trillion, or 2 trillion, not 1 trillion, 2 trillion I'm going to save. And then they can say 160 billion. And even that, David Farrenhold has taken apart. He probably has cost the government more through this Doge thing than he has created. What he's done is he's destroyed things the right wing wants destroyed, like USAID or the regulators that are against him. He's not done any significant changes to the way the government works, which, and again, as we both pointed out, maybe the government works a lot better than you think. There's fewer government officials. Evan Spiegel was pointing this out. There's fewer government workers than there were 20 years ago. And there's just more regulations, that's for sure. But he just hasn't, he has now become an overpromiser, an underdeliverer, and that's what he's doing here with these ridiculous talking about the robo-taxi. Uber has $12 billion in revenue. That's it. That's far from $1 trillion business. The second one, Optimus robots. Are you going to buy an Optimus robot, Scott? I don't know. Are you, like, a million units?
This is okay. These guys are geniuses in saying that we have to put something out there in the future that's exciting and exotic.
Yes, love it.
It will never have to deliver up to. The people can at least fill their dreams and somewhat justify, so that I can have Kathy Wood say there's going to be 1 billion robots and justify my irrational valuation. By the way, I need to correct this. DeLorean was found not guilty. And I just want to go back to this for a second. In 82, he was charged with cocaine trafficking after FBI informant James Hoffman solicited him as a financier in a scheme to sell 220 pounds. It was total entrapment.
Yeah.
At the time, informant James Hoffman solicited him as a financier in a scheme to sell 220 pounds. It was total entrapment.
Yeah.
Fuck. I don't know what their definition of entrapment is. But again, remember, if somebody offers you the ability to commit a crime and you jump on it, that's not entrapment at all. But
at the time, DeLorean was on the verge of bankruptcy. And a guy approaches you who's a federal agent and says, I have a way for you to make a lot of money if you sell 200 pounds of cocaine. And he said, yes. And then they try and charge him. I mean, you want to talk about government overreach. And then, anyways, but I'm sorry, back to Tesla. The robots, give me a fucking break. I mean, come on. That is even more pie in the sky than 1 million self-driving Tesla taxis.
Right.
That is just insane. And by the way, the robots they featured at that big event were being controlled by people 50 feet away.
Same thing with the self-driving.
So you want to talk about jazz hands. But people are excited that he's back and focused on Tesla. So good for them. I have learned to stay away from this stock, but this is a company now that is underperforming Ford Motor by a long shot, and yet trades at 70 times earnings, and Ford trades at whatever 10. So
also, I got to tell you, he did the Cybertruck, guys. He did the Cybertruck, and talk about a disastrous car and the cost. When he could have been doing smaller cars the way they were doing them in Japan, adorable ones. I bet they would have done a great job at those. And all the different. There's the ones in Japan. There's ones in China. Instead, he had to do his ridiculous. I have a small penis Cybertruck, and this is where we are. We'll see what he does. We'll see. Interesting to see if one last thing. Steve Bannon, who was at this conference I was at yesterday. Was noting, and I can't believe I agree with Steve Bannon on many things, but he said we need an absolute detailed list of the fraud he found, a detailed and checked independently list of the fraud he found, and a detailed list of any data that he has touched, so that we know if he took it anywhere. Like these two things, like the data they've been collecting and coalescing around what have these people done with the data? Steve Bannon is correct about this, because it's going to show that very little was saved, and we have to have. I
don't think Bannon is a big fan of like all these tech right dudes, right? Like I don't think Bannon I don't think I've ever heard him say anything positive about these people, ever.
And an assessment, which we're not going to have until the end of the Trump administration. But, I would agree with that. And we're not going to get that, but that's we'll see. We don't know what's going to happen in this stock because people have a thing with this guy, but he's definitely on a downward plunge.
Let's talk a little bit about Doge. He's claimed on stage he was going to find $2 trillion in savings.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He's claimed 150 billion, which is obviously a lot less than $2 trillion. And so far, it looks as if it's approximately, they claim, now they're saying 150 billion. It looks like it's more like 60 billion, and they can't even validate or confirm those savings. If you were to look at this as an audit of a $7 trillion company, the fact that they have gone in with full license in what I'll call incredible adjectives and embellishments and exaggerations around quote-unquote fraud and waste, the U.S. government has come out with literally the cleanest bill of health of any organization that would undergo this type of reckless audit. The auditors weren't there to give them a clean bill of health. The auditors were there to try and make them look stupid and exaggerate inefficiencies.
And get rid of certain things, as I know.
Yeah. And every time they think they found something, or not every time, but most of the time they think they found fraud, waste, or inefficiency, and they posted it, someone did a little bit of research on Google and said, actually, that's not accurate. You're exaggerating the savings or the waste or the fraud here. And by the way, I don't think there's been a single case where they've said, there's fraud here, and we're charging these people.
Yeah.
So what entity, what organization in the world could you have this type of biased, aggressive, unbridled audit that's doing 700 billion a year in sales, much less 7 trillion, and get this clean bill of health?
Although I don't even think they did a very good job. Like, who knows what's there? I'm certain there's fraud all over. There's Medicaid and everything else, but they didn't.
Like now do the Pentagon.
It was all, and a lot of this spending it's stuff we can't touch, and that's the real problem. Whether it's Medicare, whether it's defense spending, there's certain stuff that can't be touched, Social Security, and it's a bigger problem of. Listen, at the heart, we shouldn't have these deficits, these enormous deficits. We overspend. We have too many regulations, and that's a really good thing to attack. But this has just been a ridiculous jazz hands.
This was nothing but a weapon of mass distraction. If the U.S. was a household, it makes $50,000 a year. It spends $70. and it has household debt of $370,000. And the bad news is that all of the kids in that house are going to have to inherit that debt even after mom and dad die. And we don't want to have an adult conversation. The adult conversation is the following.
It's a chainsaw.
If you believe that fiscal responsibility means not spending $7 trillion and $5 trillion in tax revenue, all roads lead to the same place, folks. You either have to cut costs or cut spending, or you have to raise taxes. And if you want to cut spending, you have to go after one or all of three areas. And that's either entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending, or the interest on our debt. Those are the three. If you don't go after one or all of those things, you're not serious about cutting our expenses. Or you have to acknowledge that the wealthiest in our society have figured out a way to weaponize the tax code and have an alternative minimum tax. The majority of very wealthy people pay very little in tax relative to their income, or increase corporate taxes. And what's the answer, folks? All of the fucking above.
Yeah, but you're not nobody. They talked about it this week, Trump people, and then they just have been indicating no taxes on rich people.
Well, when we interviewed Leader Jeffries, I think there's an opportunity for the Democrats to say we're the adults in the room. We're going to have to means test Social Security, move the age up. People like Harris Fisher and Scott Galloway should not get Social Security. It's called the Social Security tax, meaning you pay into it, it might not get it back. It's for the better common good. It's not called the Social Security pension fund. We are going to have to figure out a way to get our medical costs from $13,000 a person down to $6,500. We're going to do that by lowering the age eligibility of Medicaid and Medicare, which do a great job, until we have nationalized health care. We're going to have to cut military spending at some point or make it more efficient. And we're going to have to announce that we are going to put $40 billion a year, $7,000 a year in every baby's 401k, that they don't have access to their 65, and announce that we are doing away with all Social Security in 65 years. And then in 30 years, interest rates will come down as people see a light at the end of the tunnel. We'll get to do away with this $1.3 trillion and growing tax on young people. But nobody wants to have a fucking
Galloway is running for president. That's a really nice, I like that.
But the Democrats have an opportunity here, because the reality is the swing voters in every election that determines the president, it's not based on transgender rights. It's not based on Ukraine. As important as those issues are, they don't swing elections. What swings elections is people in their 30s who are moderates, who basically vote on who they think will give them the best prospects to establish economic security and have a reasonable life. And it swings back and forth. It's a swing issue. And over the last 40 years, Democratic administrations have created 40 million jobs. Republicans have created 1 million. Democrats need to seize. We're the adults in the room. We have to have an honest, hard conversation around our deficits and our fiscal and monetary policy, because this is not sustainable. And you know what? People will respect it. And then when I ask Leader Jeffries, what they say is, well, at some point we're going to have that conversation. At some point tomorrow needs to be today. I think citizens are ready for this conversation.
No, yesterday. I agree. I think you need to run for president, as Ed said. Apparently Ed was telling you should run for president. That's a very good. You should be more involved in politics, Scott. I think you should. Anyway, I'll note also Alphabet. By the way, Tesla we think is in the crapper. I'll note.
By the way, I just want to note, I've been doing research. You blew my mind with the notion of combining Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX, and I'm just like, that has totally blown my mind about.
Good. As long as you attribute it to me. Just attribute it.
I do, but the idea of him merging all of those companies, like, I can't wrap my head around what that would mean. He's got. It's the only move. It's the only move.
Of moving. Was the X and XAI company, is that a merger? Was that formally done, or was it just a big buying of the X, part of the X stock into, or I'm sorry, part of the XAI stock into X? Also, is XAI the same thing that powers Grok, or are these? Okay, Twitter sold to XAI. God, all the names of these stupid fucking companies. I hate them so much. God, I fucking hate them so much. Okay, Grok is powered by XAI. Is the number of jobs created a fair metric to keep track of when Democrats keep inheriting dog shit economies? I mean, technically that helps us for job creation numbers, because we always have to recreate jobs on the way back. Is it really a fair number? I mean, not necessarily, but I mean, if Republicans are going to brag about all the benefits they get while destroying the economy, then we should get to brag about the benefits we get while rebuilding the economy. I think that's fair. God damn it. I wish I could make this better. No, whatever. It's fine. Okay.
Move. It's a move, and he would do it. That's the two things.
Why you never look into military budgets and stuff? What do you mean, look into military budget? What do you mean by that?
Knowing him, I don't know him well anymore, but knowing him as I had known him, and it's the move. It's the jazz hands move of all time. It'll be loud, noisy. It'll be what a genius. Here's the last thing I'm going to say about this. All you people that were slathering over Elon when he was visiting Congress and we all love Doge. You don't all love Doge. You are, the Republicans should be embarrassed for all the kissassery they did to this guy and what he was doing and abrogating their responsibilities as legislators. Just handing it over to this guy and saying you fix it was the most irresponsible thing. And someday there's going to be a reckoning at some point, and you are not going to be you've not bathed yourself in any kind of glory. You bathed yourself in embarrassment and suckery. So that to me is really the lesson here. We'll see where it goes, but You know, I see why Donald Trump did it. The rest of you are grotesque. So is Donald Trump. But anyway, I'll note Alphabet earnings are coming after we record, so we don't know what's going to happen or anything they might say about the case that both cases they've lost. But we'll discuss next week because they're really at a crossroads. Google certainly is. All right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Trump trying to calm the markets after his own comments created chaos once again.
We'll be
Scott,
back.
we're back. It's another whiplash week on Wall Street. President Trump's attacks on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, calling him a major loser and criticizing his policies, rattled the market earlier this week, triggering a major sell-off of stocks and bonds.
God, I love
Trump later
Jerome.
said he had no intention of firing Powell. By the way,
Jerry.
he can't. It's very hard to do so it doesn't matter what he thinks. He also indicated some easing of tariff tension with China, although China has sort of pushed back on that. Comments did still fuel a market rebound. But as of Thursday morning, China is calling any reports of tariff talks, quote, baseless rumors, directly aimed at Trump there, sending the Dow down briefly, although the S&P 500 has been
I thought they were in
staying
talks,
steady.
though.
Once the
Isn't that what
markets
Trump said?
seem to have spooked Trump, as they should. He met with CEOs of Target, Walmart, and Home Depot on Monday. It was interesting Amazon wasn't there, but who reportedly warned about tariffs leading to price surges and empty shelves within weeks. A dozen states also sued to block Trump's tariff, arguing he doesn't have the authority to impose them. Even though he says he's not firing Powell, he's been undermining him. He's going to blame him for all this with the attacks. He continues to act like he has some sort of control over this. Let's talk about that for a minute. Well, actually, let me go through everything. And with China, Trump said this week that tariffs on Chinese goods will come down substantially, but won't be zero, and that the U.S., they weren't before, and the U.S. and China are actively talking, which I said China denies. One White House senior official told the Wall Street Journal that China tariffs would likely get reduced roughly between 50 and 65%. Another Trump blink seems imminent. Again, Scott Bessent and Elon Musk got in a fight. I think it's sort of in our rearview mirror. Scott Bessent won with the IRS pick. This kind of chaos is just insane, it seems. Like he's just shooting himself in the foot over and over again and then declaring victory when he goes back on the stupid thing he did. Let's hear what you think about this, Scott Galloway.
True.
Well, the only two things you have to remember in a negotiation are not to make it emotional, not to have it be a win-lose, and to always show a credible willingness to walk away.
True.
This guy gets an F on each of those. He's insulted them. His vice president has called them peasants. He makes it emotional. He pisses off. People are human. If I'm a Canadian, I don't want to work with you. I'm willing to sacrifice my own economic prosperity.
Travel's down. Everything's down.
You want to talk about, I was thinking about it today. Bill Ackman, on an unrelated note, Bill Ackman came out with this tweet that sent Hertz stock up 100%. And he said, he'd been aggregating a stake for a long time. And he said that because of these tariffs, the value of Hertz's automobile fleet it's a $14 billion fleet or $12 billion fleet. The cost of cars is going to go up so much because of these tariffs that it's an underappreciated asset in the sense that their Hertz fleet is now worth $1.2 billion more. And I'm like, this is the ultimate interpretive dance. Because one, that's like saying my liver might be feeling a stake for a long time. And he said that because of these tariffs, the value of Hertz's automobile fleet it's a $14 billion fleet or $12 billion fleet. The cost of cars is going to go up so much because of these tariffs that it's an underappreciated asset in the sense that their Hertz fleet is now worth $1.2 billion more. And I'm like, this is the ultimate interpretive dance. Because one, that's like saying my liver and my lungs are more valuable than they are to me. Well, I'm sort of fond of them. Like, how are you going to harvest, unless Hertz announces it's selling its auto fleet, which they're not going to.
Well, they sell some of it. They do have a division that sells cars.
Yeah, but they have a division that buys cars.
Yes, that's correct.
So it should be a net neutral, right? Actually, a net negative because new cars will be more, those costs will be more than the increase in the value of the used cars you sell. And then the countervailing force of this, what I'll call gymnastics and interpretive dance to try and turn chicken shit into chicken salad, is that the majority of the automobile rental market is based on tourism. And tourism is absolutely crashing. And let's just talk about reality here as we're trying to boost the manufacturing sector that employs 11 million people. Has anyone noticed while we were sleeping that tourism is fucking crashing and also employs 12 million people? So all of this interpretive dance around these sycophants trying to either pump a stock they have an activist position in or trying to claim that this guy's playing 4D chess just can't look at data.
Right.
And also,
or they are looking at data that is cherry picking.
He's been very
I like
emotional.
that you turned on Blackman the way I had. But go ahead.
It's like, I would describe the day he announced that as, remember when you go to interpret dance, you look at modern art and you're like, oh, you want to be cool and you want to say, oh, it's beautiful. And then you look at the next person and you're like, this makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
I mean, this is his announcement that they have this undervalued asset is really modern art / interpretive.
Also, may I note, they have a lot of Teslas that nobody wants to rent. They did this whole, remember, they have tons of Teslas.
When's the last time you rent? It's a shitty business in structural
Agreed,
decline.
but I'm just saying they get that whack deal. Every time they try to give me one, I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah, wait. I saw a tweet this morning or yesterday about that. That soon you'll be able to use your Tesla as a taxi. Is there like an actual update coming to the self-driving stuff? Or is this just another empty tweet about self-driving that is nowhere near close to being released?
I shall not. And apparently nobody wants to rent a Tesla.
Anyways, it speaks to his brand, to Bill Ackman's brand, that he puts out a tweet of an insane thesis that makes no sense if you actually look at the data. Well, the stock doubled. You got to give it to him. The guy's brand clearly still means something in the market. But back to Trump. Highly emotional, creating enemies and agitator where he doesn't need to. That will only reduce our negotiating leverage when people will put their own ego now, like him, ahead of actual prosperity and fidelity to their stakeholders and to citizens and to their economy. And two, a credible willingness to walk away. He imposes a 145% tariff and then hours later says